The Immortal Beginning. A narration-friendly Hulk origin epic. Prologue. The desert did not forgive mistakes. It swallowed them. It buried them beneath heat, silence, and endless miles of cracked earth. And on one terrible day, beneath the burning New Mexico sun, the desert created a monster. Not from evil, not from hatred, but from pain. The man standing at the center of that pain was Dr. Bruce Banner. Thin, quiet, brilliant. A scientist whose mind moved faster than the machines around him. A man who could solve equations that made generals nervous. A man who never truly learned how to speak to people, especially himself. Long before the world called him Hulk, Bruce Banner was simply a frightened child trying to survive a father who looked at him with disappointment instead of love. That was where the story truly began. Not with gamma radiation. Not with explosions. Not with rage. With fear. And fear, left alone for too long, eventually becomes something else. Something larger. Something stronger. Something impossible to contain. Chapter 1. The Boy Who Stayed Silent. Bruce Banner was born during a thunderstorm. Rain hammered against hospital windows. Lightning flashed across dark skies. Doctors rushed through white hallways while nurses whispered that the weather felt wrong somehow. Inside a dim delivery room, Rebecca Banner held her newborn son against her chest. For one brief moment, everything felt peaceful. The baby barely cried. His eyes moved carefully around the room as if he were already studying the world. Rebecca smiled. "He is beautiful," she whispered. Brian Banner did not smile back. Brian was a physicist, a genius, and a deeply broken man. He looked at his child with suspicion instead of wonder. Because Brian Banner believed something terrible about himself. He believed intelligence was poison. He believed the radiation exposure from years of scientific research had damaged him forever. And now, looking into the face of his newborn son, he became convinced he had passed that damage along. From that day forward, Brian Banner watched Bruce like a man waiting for a monster to reveal itself. Bruce grew up inside a house where silence mattered more than happiness. Rebecca loved her son fiercely. Brian feared him. And children always understand fear long before adults think they do. Bruce learned quickly. He learned how to avoid eye contact. He learned how to keep his voice low. He learned how to disappear into books. Most importantly, he learned never to make his father angry. Because when Brian Banner became angry, the entire house changed. Walls felt smaller. Air became heavier. Even the floorboards seemed to tremble. At first, the violence stayed hidden behind doors. Rebecca would emerge with bruises she tried to cover using makeup. Brian would apologize afterward. Then he would promise it would never happen again. Then it would happen again. Bruce watched all of it. Children always watch. One night, when Bruce was 6 years old, he woke to shouting downstairs. Thunder echoed outside. His small bedroom glowed white whenever lightning flashed through the curtains. He heard his mother crying. Then he heard something break. Bruce climbed from bed slowly. His hands trembled. The hallway beyond his room looked endless in the dark. He moved carefully toward the staircase. Voices drifted upward. Brian sounded furious. Rebecca sounded terrified. Bruce peeked through the railing. His father stood in the living room holding a whiskey bottle. Glass littered the carpet. Rebecca pressed herself against the wall. "He is not normal," Brian shouted. "He is just a child," Rebecca cried. "You do not see it because you refuse to see it." Brian pointed toward the staircase. Toward Bruce. For a moment, father and son locked eyes. Bruce froze. Brian stared upward with something horrifying in his expression. Not anger. Not hatred. Fear. As if he truly believed his own child was dangerous. Bruce backed away slowly. He returned to bed. And that night, for the first time, he He imagined another version of himself. A stronger version. A version nobody could hurt. Years later, Bruce would not remember creating that imaginary protector. But it remained there. Waiting. Sleeping. Growing. The human mind is not fragile because it breaks. It is fragile because sometimes it survives by becoming something else. Chapter 2. The Monster in the House. By the age of 10, Bruce Banner understood two important truths. The first truth was that intelligence could isolate a person. The second truth was that anger terrified him. Teachers praised Bruce constantly. He solved mathematical equations far beyond his grade level. He read scientific journals meant for college students. Adults called him gifted. Other children called him strange. Bruce spent most lunch breaks alone. He preferred libraries anyway. Books made sense. People did not. At home, Brian Banner became increasingly unstable. Sometimes he would sit quietly for hours, staring at walls. Other times he erupted without warning. Bruce learned to study emotional patterns the way other children studied weather. The sound of footsteps. The smell of alcohol. The tension in his father's jaw. Every detail mattered. Because survival depended on predicting explosions before they happened. One winter evening, Bruce returned home carrying a science award from school. He was proud. Nervous. Excited. Rebecca hugged him tightly when he entered the kitchen. "Your father will be proud too," she said. Bruce wanted to believe her. When Brian arrived home later that night, snow covered his coat. Bruce handed him the certificate carefully. Brian stared at it. Silence filled the kitchen. Then Brian crumpled the paper in his fist. "This is exactly what I feared," he said. Rebecca looked shocked. "Brian, do not defend him." Bruce stepped backward instinctively. Brian approached slowly. "Do you think being smart makes you better than everyone else?" Bruce shook his head. "No, sir." "Then stop looking at me like that." "I was not." The slap came suddenly. Bruce hit the floor hard. Rebecca screamed. Brian stared down at his son with trembling hands. For a moment, regret crossed his face. Then came something worse. Conviction. As though hurting Bruce somehow proved he was right about him. That night, Rebecca held Bruce while he cried. She brushed wet hair away from his forehead. "None of this is your fault," she whispered. But Bruce already blamed himself. Children almost always do. A few months later, the violence escalated beyond repair. Neighbors heard shouting. Police arrived too late. Bruce hid in his bedroom closet while chaos consumed the house. He heard his mother scream. Then silence. Terrible silence. Officers eventually found Bruce curled against the closet wall. His eyes were empty. Rebecca Banner was dead. Brian Banner was arrested. And Bruce Banner changed forever. Some tragedies shatter people immediately. Others sink slowly into the soul like poison. Bruce carried his grief inward. He buried it beneath intellect, beneath discipline, beneath emotional walls so strong that even he could no longer see through them. But buried emotions do not disappear. They wait. And deep inside Bruce Banner, something enormous had begun to breathe. Chapter 3. Gamma Dreams. Bruce Banner became obsessed with science because science obeyed rules. Unlike people, unlike emotions, unlike memory. In laboratories, every action produced a reaction. Every equation led somewhere. Order existed. That order comforted him. By 17, Bruce attended university programs designed for adults. Professors admired him. Students avoided him. He rarely spoke unless necessary. When he did speak, his words arrived carefully measured, as if every sentence had already survived intense internal debate. Bruce studied nuclear physics, biology, radiation theory, Human cellular adaptation. His mind consumed information endlessly. Sleep became optional. Relationships became impossible. The few friends he made described him the same way. Polite, distant, haunted. During late nights inside university laboratories, Bruce often stared at glowing equipment while lost in thought. Radiation fascinated him, not because of destruction, because of transformation. Gamma energy especially intrigued him. It existed at terrifying extremes. Powerful, unstable, barely understood. Most scientists treated gamma radiation like a nightmare. Bruce treated it like a question. One mentor asked him why. Bruce considered the answer for a long time. Then he said quietly, "Because extreme pressure changes things." The professor laughed politely. He did not realize Bruce was not talking about science. Years passed. Bruce earned doctorates, published groundbreaking theories, worked alongside some of the greatest scientific minds in America. Eventually, the United States military took interest. That was how General Thaddeus Ross entered Bruce Banner's life. Ross was everything Bruce was not. Loud, aggressive, confident, a military commander who believed strength solved most problems. But Ross respected intelligence, especially intelligence capable of creating powerful weapons. Their partnership began professionally. Ross provided funding. Bruce provided brilliance. Together, they worked on experimental gamma technology at a remote desert installation. Officially, the research focused on national defense. Unofficially, everyone understood the truth. The military wanted bigger weapons. Bruce told himself his work would save lives. Scientists often tell themselves similar things. Then Bruce met Betty Ross. And for the first time in many years, something inside him softened. Betty was intelligent in ways Bruce had never encountered. Not mathematically, emotionally. She saw people clearly, especially broken people. Bruce struggled during conversations with her at first. He avoided eye contact, over-explained scientific concepts, fell silent unexpectedly. Betty never mocked him, never pressured him. She simply listened. That frightened Bruce more than anything, because people who listen carefully eventually notice the darkness underneath. And Bruce Banner carried an ocean of darkness beneath his calm exterior. Still, Betty remained. Gradually, Bruce began imagining a future beyond laboratories. A future where he might finally become something other than a frightened child pretending to be a genius. Then came the gamma bomb, the invention that changed everything. The invention that created the Hulk. Chapter 4. Ground Zero. The desert morning arrived clear and merciless. Heat waves shimmered above endless sand. Military vehicles surrounded the testing zone. Technicians moved rapidly between equipment stations. Soldiers prepared observation bunkers. The gamma bomb sat atop a distant tower like a sleeping star. Bruce Banner reviewed calculations one final time. Every number aligned perfectly. Every system functioned within expected parameters. Yet anxiety lingered in his chest. Gamma energy remained unpredictable. Power on that scale always carried consequences. General Ross approached wearing sunglasses and military fatigues. "You look nervous, Banner." "I prefer careful," Bruce replied. Ross grunted. "History remembers results." Bruce glanced toward the tower. "History rarely remembers collateral damage," he thought. But he said nothing. Technicians initiated countdown procedures. Across the testing field, warning sirens echoed. All personnel cleared the blast radius. Or at least they were supposed to. Minutes before detonation, Bruce noticed movement through binoculars. A vehicle. Old. Civilian. Driving directly into the restricted zone. Bruce focused harder. A teenager climbed from the truck. The boy wandered carelessly toward the test site. Bruce's heartbeat spiked. "Stop the countdown," he ordered. A technician hesitated. Ross frowned. "We are already committed. There is a civilian inside the blast radius." Ross looked annoyed more than concerned. Bruce did not wait for permission. He sprinted from the bunker. Soldiers shouted behind him. Sirens wailed louder. The teenager, Rick Jones, stared in confusion as Bruce reached him. "You need to move now," Bruce yelled. Together they ran toward a nearby trench. Above them, the countdown continued. 5, 4, 3. Bruce shoved Rick into protective cover. 2, 1. The world exploded. Light consumed everything. Not ordinary light. Gamma light. A violent emerald sun erupting across the desert. Heat slammed into Bruce like divine punishment. Energy tore through his body. Cells ignited. Bones trembled. Every buried emotion inside him awakened simultaneously. Fear. Pain. Rage. The trench collapsed around him. Far above, mushroom clouds climbed into the sky. Soldiers watched in horror. General Ross shouted for emergency teams. Betty Ross screamed Bruce's name. Hours later, rescue crews recovered an unconscious man from the wreckage. His body should have been destroyed. Instead, Bruce Banner survived. Barely. Doctors called it impossible. Bruce called it temporary. Because deep inside his bones, something was moving. Something enormous. Something angry. That night, beneath cold moonlight inside a military medical facility, Bruce Banner opened his eyes. Pain flooded through him instantly. His heartbeat accelerated. Machines around him malfunctioned. Sweat covered his skin. Then came the anger. Ancient. Infinite. Bruce screamed, and the monster finally emerged. Chapter 5. The first transformation. The human body was never designed to contain gamma mutation. Bruce Banner learned that violently. Bones stretched. Muscles expanded. Skin darkened into impossible green. The hospital bed shattered beneath sudden weight. Doctors stumbled backward in terror. Alarms erupted across the facility. Bruce tried to speak. What emerged instead was a roar powerful enough to shake windows. Panic consumed the room. Soldiers rushed inside carrying rifles. The creature standing before them towered nearly 8 feet tall. Massive shoulders. Burning eyes. Hands large enough to crush steel. Yet beneath the monstrous appearance existed something deeply tragic. Confusion. The Hulk looked around like a wounded animal trapped in unfamiliar territory. General Ross arrived moments later. He stared at the green giant with absolute disbelief. "What have you done?" The Hulk answered by smashing through reinforced walls. Concrete exploded outward. Soldiers opened fire. Bullets bounced harmlessly from emerald skin. The Hulk roared again. Not merely from anger. From fear. Bruce Banner's entire life had been built around control. Control of emotion. Control of memory. Control of pain. Now all that buried fury had taken physical form. The Hulk crashed through military barricades and disappeared into the desert night. Search teams pursued him for hours. They found footprints. Destroyed vehicles. Shattered rock formations. But no monster. Near dawn, a naked and exhausted Bruce Banner collapsed beside a roadside ditch several miles away. He remembered fragments. Noise. Violence. Rage. The memories terrified him. Bruce stole clothing from an abandoned laundry line and wandered toward civilization in shock. By noon, military broadcasts described him as both victim and suspect. General Ross initiated full containment operations. Betty refused to believe Bruce had become dangerous. Bruce himself was less certain. Over the following weeks, the transformations continued. Stress triggered them. Fear triggered them. Anger triggered them fastest of all. Each change grew more violent, more unstable. Bruce attempted isolation, meditation, scientific analysis. Nothing worked. At night, he transformed, and the Hulk emerged stronger every time. Yet something strange happened as well. The Hulk displayed intelligence. Primitive, childlike, but undeniably emotional. He hated being hunted. He protected innocent people instinctively. He became furious whenever soldiers threatened him. Most importantly, he repeated the same phrases constantly. Leave Hulk alone. Hulk strongest there is. Nobody hurt Hulk anymore. Bruce began recognizing horrifying patterns. The Hulk was not merely a mutation. He was a psychological fracture, a living embodiment of suppressed trauma and rage. The protector Bruce imagined during childhood had become real. Only now, that protector possessed limitless strength. And limitless strength terrified the world. Chapter 6. The chase begins. General Ross declared the Hulk a national threat. Military convoys spread across multiple states. Roadblocks appeared overnight. News broadcasts transformed Bruce Banner into a ghost story. Some reports described the Hulk as a communist weapon. Others called him an alien. Few understood the truth. Bruce Banner became a fugitive trapped inside his own body. He moved constantly. Cheap motels, abandoned cabins, remote forests. Every heartbeat carried tension. Every emotional spike risked catastrophe. Sleep became dangerous. Human connection became impossible. Bruce spent countless nights studying his condition through stolen laboratory equipment. Blood samples, cellular scans, gamma readings. The data made no sense. His body should have collapsed under the mutation. Instead, gamma radiation adapted around psychological stress patterns. The angrier the Hulk became, the stronger he grew. There appeared to be no upper limit. That realization haunted Bruce. Because Bruce Banner understood something the military did not. The Hulk was not evil, but he could become unstoppable. One rainy evening in a small roadside diner, Bruce overheard truck drivers discussing the Hulk. Army says the thing tore apart 6 tanks. No creature survives that much firepower. Maybe it ain't a creature. Bruce lowered his eyes toward his coffee. The waitress noticed his trembling hands. You okay, sweetheart? Bruce forced a weak smile. Just tired. Outside, thunder rolled across dark clouds. Bruce froze. Thunder always reminded him of childhood, of shouting, of fear. His pulse accelerated. The lights inside the diner flickered. A spoon bent suddenly in his grip. Bruce stood too quickly. I have to go. By the time military helicopters arrived overhead 15 minutes later, the diner parking lot looked like a war zone. Vehicles overturned. Road signs twisted apart. Massive footprints disappeared into nearby mountains. The Hulk had surfaced again. Ross intensified the hunt. Specialized weapons followed. Experimental tranquilizers. Gamma restraints. Heavy artillery. Nothing worked for long. Each battle ended the same way. The Hulk escaping. The military suffering enormous damage. Bruce awakening somewhere unfamiliar with blood on his hands and horror in his heart. Meanwhile, Betty Ross searched desperately for answers. Unlike her father, Betty refused to see the Hulk as merely a monster. She saw Bruce within him, still suffering, still trapped. That belief would eventually save countless lives. Because everyone else prepared for war, only Betty remembered there was still a man beneath the rage. Chapter 7. Hulk vs. Wolverine. Years passed. The legend of the Hulk spread across the world. Cities whispered his name. Governments feared him. Heroes challenged him. Few truly understood him. In the frozen wilderness of Canada, another weapon waited. His name was Wolverine, and he was almost as dangerous as the Hulk. The mission arrived through classified channels. A green monster had crossed into remote territories. Entire military squads disappeared. Forests looked torn apart by earthquakes. Officials needed someone capable of surviving direct confrontation. So they sent Wolverine. Snow-covered endless pine forest when Logan first discovered the tracks. Massive footprints. Broken trees. A trail of destruction moving northward. Logan crouched beside one shattered trunk. His enhanced senses detected something beneath the obvious damage. Pain. The Hulk was not rampaging randomly. He was running from something. Night fell quickly across the wilderness. Wind howled through dark trees. Then Logan heard it. Breathing. Heavy. Powerful. Angry. Wolverine unsheathed his claws with a metallic snap. The Hulk emerged from darkness slowly. Towering. Wild-eyed. Steam rising from green skin into freezing air. For several seconds, neither warrior moved. Then Wolverine spoke. "You look terrible, bub." The Hulk growled deeply. "Leave Hulk alone." "Can't do that." "Hulk not want fight." Logan almost believed him. Then distant helicopters appeared overhead. Searchlights pierced the forest. Gunfire erupted. Everything changed instantly. The Hulk roared with primal fury. Wolverine charged, and the forest exploded into violence. Claws sliced across green flesh. The Hulk hurled Wolverine through trees. Entire hillsides shattered beneath their battle. Snowstorms swirled around impacts powerful enough to crack stone. Again and again Wolverine attacked. Again and again the Hulk grew stronger. But beneath the rage, Logan noticed something strange. The Hulk never delivered killing blows. Even during blind fury. Even while attacked from all sides. Some part of Bruce Banner still restrained the monster. Military forces escalated the conflict. Missiles streaked through darkness. Explosions consumed the forest. The Hulk finally snapped. His roar echoed for miles. Shockwaves flattened trees. Helicopters crashed from the sky. Wolverine realized the terrifying truth. The angrier the Hulk became, the more reality itself seemed to bend around his strength. Logan dug his claws into frozen earth as the Hulk approached. Both warriors bled. Both looked exhausted. Then, unexpectedly, the Hulk stopped. He stared at Wolverine silently. And for one brief moment, sadness crossed the monster's face. "Hulk tired," he whispered. The word struck Logan harder than any punch. Because beneath all the destruction stood a creature that simply wanted peace. A creature created through suffering. A creature hunted so relentlessly that rage had become its only defense. The Hulk turned away, disappearing into the frozen wilderness. Wolverine watched him go. And for the first time, Logan understood that the Hulk was not truly a monster. He was a wound. A massive, unstoppable wound wandering the world. Chapter 8. The Endless War Inside. Bruce Banner spent years searching for a cure. Every failure deepened his despair. Gamma suppressants. Experimental surgeries. Psychological conditioning. Nothing lasted. The Hulk always returned. Because the Hulk was not merely radiation. He was Bruce Banner's pain given form. And pain cannot simply be erased. Bruce eventually understood something horrifying. The Hulk had personalities. Different forms. Different emotional states. Sometimes savage. Sometimes intelligent. Sometimes childlike. Sometimes terrifyingly calm. Each version represented fragments of Bruce himself. Fragments created by years of trauma and repression. The world saw a monster. Psychologists saw dissociation. Bruce saw punishment. Yet despite everything, the Hulk repeatedly saved lives. He stopped invasions. destroyed world-ending threats, protected innocent people. Again and again, the creature feared by humanity became humanity's shield. But peace never lasted. The military kept hunting. Cities kept panicking. Governments kept preparing weapons. And Bruce Banner kept running. Always running. Because no matter how many heroes fought beside him, Bruce never truly believed he deserved happiness. Trauma had shaped his entire identity. Part of him believed the Hulk existed because Bruce Banner deserved suffering. That belief trapped him more effectively than chains ever could. Then came a terrible realization. The Hulk protected Bruce the same way Bruce once imagined protection as a child. Violently. Absolutely. Without compromise. The Hulk existed because a terrified little boy once wished nobody could ever hurt him again. And the universe answered that wish with gamma fire. Epilogue. The Man and the Monster. The world would remember the Hulk as many things. A monster. A hero. A weapon. A force of nature. But at the center of every story stood Bruce Banner. A lonely child who survived terrible things. A scientist who believed intelligence could solve suffering. A man who carried so much buried rage that it eventually became impossible to contain. The tragedy of the Hulk was never simply destruction. It was isolation. Bruce Banner wanted what most people wanted. Safety. Understanding. Peace. Instead, he became something the world feared. Yet despite endless pain, Bruce continued fighting. Not against enemies. Against himself. That was the true battle. Not Hulk versus Wolverine. Not Hulk versus the military. Not Hulk versus the Avengers. Bruce Banner versus the darkness inside him. And perhaps that struggle resonated because everyone carries some version of it. Most people simply do not glow green when they lose control. Far away, beneath another lonely night sky, Bruce Banner walked along an empty highway. A backpack hung over one shoulder. Rain began falling softly. Thunder echoed in distant clouds. Bruce closed his eyes. For a moment, fear returned. Then another emotion surfaced beneath it. Acceptance. The Hulk would always be part of him. Not a curse alone. A scar. A protector. A reminder. And somewhere deep within the endless storm of gamma fury, the monster remained awake. Waiting. Breathing. Listening. Forever. Chapter 9. The City That Hated Him. New York never truly slept. It groaned. It breathed. It screamed through sirens and subway brakes and millions of restless lives moving beneath towers of steel. Bruce Banner hated cities. Too many people. Too much noise. Too many opportunities for fear to become anger. And anger always led somewhere terrible. Rain soaked the streets as Bruce moved through crowded sidewalks wearing an old gray hoodie pulled low over his face. Nobody noticed him. That was the strange thing about large cities. A man could disappear completely while standing in plain sight. Bruce preferred it that way. For 3 months he had remained hidden, working nights repairing laboratory equipment beneath a false name, sleeping in a tiny apartment above a laundromat, avoiding emotional attachments, avoiding mirrors, avoiding the news. But peace never lasted, especially for Bruce Banner. Inside a dim electronics store, television screens suddenly shifted toward emergency broadcasts. The word scrolling beneath the footage made Bruce freeze instantly. Unidentified enhanced threat detected downtown. Witnesses screamed while cameras shook violently. A creature made of living metal rampaged through intersections. Cars flew through the air. Buildings collapsed. Police weapons did nothing. Bruce stared silently. Every instinct told him to leave. Run. Hide. Because if he became involved, the Hulk would follow. And wherever the Hulk appeared, destruction multiplied. Then Bruce saw something else. A child trapped beneath wreckage. crying, terrified. Nobody close enough to help. Bruce closed his eyes. His heartbeat quickened immediately. No, not here. Not now. But the memories returned anyway. His mother crying. His own childhood fear. The helplessness. Bruce exhaled shakily. Then he walked toward the chaos. Downtown Manhattan looked like a battlefield. Smoke rolled between shattered streets. Emergency sirens echoed endlessly. The metallic creature towered above crushed vehicles while civilians fled in panic. Bruce moved carefully through debris. Every scream tightened the pressure inside his chest. The Hulk stirred. He could feel it, like thunder building beneath his skin. Bruce reached the trapped child, a young girl, maybe 7 years old. Tears streaked across her dirt-covered face. "Please help me," she whispered. Bruce knelt beside the wreckage. His hands trembled violently. "I am going to get you out," he said softly. The metal beam pinning her legs weighed far too much. Bruce strained uselessly. Pain shot through his muscles. The creature noticed movement nearby. Massive glowing eyes turned toward them. Bruce's pulse exploded. The transformation began instantly. Bones cracked. Muscles surged. The child screamed. Green skin burst through torn fabric. Then the Hulk emerged with a roar powerful enough to silence the street. The metallic creature charged. The Hulk met it head-on. Impact thundered across the city. Windows shattered for blocks. The battle that followed became legend. Steel bent like paper. Roads split apart. Entire buses flew through the air. Citizens watched from rooftops and news helicopters while two monsters tore apart Manhattan. But throughout the violence, the Hulk repeatedly positioned himself between danger and civilians, protecting them, shielding them, even while consumed by rage. Eventually, the metallic creature collapsed beneath overwhelming force. The Hulk stood victorious in the center of ruined streets, breathing heavily, rain pouring down across emerald skin. Police surrounded him. Military helicopters circled overhead. Citizens stared in terrified silence. Then the little girl stepped forward, the same child Bruce had tried to save. Everyone panicked instantly. Officers shouted warnings, weapons raised, but the child ignored them. She looked directly at the Hulk and smiled. "Thank you," she whispered. The Hulk froze. No fear, no hatred, just gratitude. Something changed inside the monster's expression, something painfully human. Then the helicopters opened fire, and the Hulk vanished into the storm. Chapter 10. Betty Ross never stopped looking. Betty Ross kept every newspaper clipping, every military report, every blurry photograph of the Hulk captured during destruction and chaos. Her apartment looked less like a home and more like an investigation. Walls covered in timelines, scientific notes, gamma research, psychological profiles. Most people believe Betty obsessed over the Hulk because she loved Bruce Banner. That was true, but it was not the entire truth. Betty understood something nobody else wanted to accept. The Hulk was suffering, and suffering creatures often became dangerous when cornered. General Ross refused to hear it. Years of failed military operations had transformed his frustration into obsession. He wanted the Hulk captured, contained, controlled, if necessary, destroyed. Betty argued with him constantly. "You're making him worse," she said one evening inside Ross's heavily guarded office. The general barely looked up from tactical reports. "It destroyed half of Harlem 3 weeks ago, after soldiers attacked him first, because he is dangerous." Betty stepped closer. "No, he is terrified." Ross finally looked at his daughter. Years of exhaustion lined his face. "You still think Banner is in there somewhere?" "I know he is. Ross sighed heavily. Then Banner should surrender. Betty almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was impossible. Bruce Banner feared himself more than any government ever could. Surrender meant laboratories. Weapons testing. Dissection. Bruce knew that. And deep down, Ross knew it too. Later that night, Betty reviewed recent footage from Manhattan. Frame by frame. The Hulk shielding civilians. The Hulk moving children away from collapsing debris. The Hulk refusing to strike people who could not fight back. A monster did not behave that way. A wounded soul did. Then Betty noticed something else. For one brief second during the footage, the Hulk looked directly toward the camera. And inside those massive green eyes she recognized overwhelming loneliness. Bruce Banner was still there. Still trapped. Still trying to survive. No matter how much rage surrounded him. Betty touched the frozen screen gently. "I am going to find you," she whispered. Far away, hidden inside an abandoned church beneath another cold night, Bruce Banner suddenly woke from an easy sleep. As though somewhere deep inside the endless storm of gamma rage, part of him had heard her. Chapter 11. Ghosts beneath the church. Rainwater dripped steadily through the cracked ceiling. The abandoned church smelled of dust, mildew, and old wood slowly surrendering to time. Bruce Banner sat alone near the altar. A thin blanket rested across his shoulders. Candles flickered weakly around him. Outside, distant thunder rolled through the city. Bruce stared at his trembling hands. Every transformation left lingering damage. Not physical damage. Something deeper. Every time the Hulk emerged, Bruce felt pieces of himself slipping further away. Memory became fragmented. Emotions blurred together. Sometimes he struggled to remember where Bruce Banner ended and the Hulk began. That terrified him more than death. A portable radio crackled nearby. News reports discussed the Manhattan incident endlessly. Witnesses called the Hulk a hero. Others called him a monster pretending to be heroic. Politicians demanded military action. Scientists debated gamma mutation theories. Conspiracy groups claimed the Hulk was government property. Bruce switched the radio off. Silence returned. Then came another sound. Footsteps. Bruce stood instantly. Heart racing. The Hulk stirred beneath his skin. A figure emerged slowly from darkness near the church entrance. Tall. Broad shoulders. A cigar glowing faintly between rough fingers. Wolverine. "You always hide in cheerful places?" Logan asked. Bruce looked exhausted rather than surprised. "How did you find me?" "You leave a trail when you panic." Bruce almost smiled. Almost. Wolverine approached carefully. Unlike soldiers. Unlike hunters. Logan moved like a man approaching an injured animal instead of an enemy. "Relax," Wolverine muttered. "If I wanted to fight, we'd already be fighting." Bruce sat back down slowly. "Then why are you here?" Wolverine leaned against a broken pew. Rain echoed softly through shattered stained glass windows. "Because somebody else is hunting you now." Bruce frowned. "Russ? Where's?" Logan removed a folded photograph from his jacket. He handed it over silently. Bruce examined the image. A destroyed laboratory. Scorched walls. Bodies covered by military tarps. And written across one remaining wall in massive claw-like marks were two words. Hulk lives. Bruce stared at the photograph. Confusion spread across his face. "I did not do this." "I know." "Then who did?" Logan's expression darkened. "Somebody trying to make the world afraid of you all over again." Bruce looked away. "The world already fears me. Not like this." Logan crouched nearby. "Listen carefully, Banner. Somebody is attacking gamma research facilities across the country. They are leaving evidence behind pointing directly at the Hulk." Bruce felt cold suddenly. "Why?" Because they want the military desperate. Desperate for what? Wolverine answered quietly. Weapons. The word lingered heavily inside the ruined church. Bruce closed his eyes. He already understood where this was heading. Humanity always wanted stronger weapons. And there was nothing stronger than the Hulk. Chapter 12. The Leader. Samuel Stearns believed evolution required sacrifice. That belief destroyed his humanity long before gamma radiation transformed his body. Deep beneath an abandoned industrial complex, Stearns studied glowing monitors surrounded by humming machines. Green light reflected across enlarged features twisted by mutation. His skull had expanded unnaturally. Veins pulsed beneath pale skin. His intelligence had grown beyond ordinary human limits. So had his arrogance. The world would eventually know him as the leader. And he hated Bruce Banner with absolute obsession. Because while gamma radiation had turned Banner into the strongest creature alive, it had turned Stearns into something he considered superior. A mind beyond human limitation. A strategist capable of reshaping civilization. At least in his own eyes. Stearns watched footage of the Hulk battling military forces. Again, and again, and again. Always the same pattern. Strength, emotion, chaos. Such wasted potential, Stearns whispered. One of his assistants approached nervously. Sir, the military task force is mobilizing earlier than expected. Stearns smiled faintly. Excellent. Fear accelerates progress beautifully. He turned toward enormous containment chambers lining the laboratory walls. Inside floated grotesque failed experiments. Creatures worked by unstable gamma exposure. None survived long. None possessed the balance Stearns sought. Only the Hulk had achieved true perfection, which meant Bruce Banner represented both inspiration and insult. Stearns tapped glowing controls. A massive digital map illuminated across nearby screens. Military bases, gamma facilities, population centers. Every recent attack carefully plotted. Everything moving toward one inevitable conclusion. Open war. And during war, governments abandoned morality quickly. That was when Stearns intended to offer them salvation. Artificial Hulk soldiers. Gamma-powered armies. Obedient monsters. Humanity would accept anything if sufficiently terrified. Stearns understood that truth deeply. Because fear had shaped his own life too. The difference was simple. Bruce Banner ran from fear. Samuel Stearns weaponized it. Chapter 13. Midnight Transformation. Bruce and Wolverine traveled north beneath constant rain. Back roads. Abandoned routes. Places where fewer people could witness disaster if things went wrong. Logan drove an old pickup truck that smelled faintly of gasoline and cigars. Bruce sat silently in the passenger seat watching forests blur past dark windows. Neither man enjoyed conversation. That suited them perfectly. Eventually Logan broke the silence. You ever think about stopping? Bruce looked over. Stopping what? Running. Bruce laughed quietly. It sounded hollow. You say that like I have somewhere safe to go. Everybody's got somewhere. Not people like me. Logan glanced toward him briefly. People like us, you mean? Bruce said nothing after that. Hours later they stopped beside an isolated gas station buried deep within mountain roads. The place looked nearly abandoned. Only one flickering neon sign still functioned. Bruce stepped outside slowly. Cold night air hit his face. For the first time in weeks, he felt almost calm. That feeling lasted less than 30 seconds. Gunfire erupted from surrounding hillsides. Sniper rounds shattered windows instantly. Wolverine reacted first. Claws exploded outward. Ambush. Armored soldiers emerged from darkness carrying experimental weapons glowing faint green. Gamma tech. Bruce felt panic surge through him. The Hulk awakened immediately. "No," Bruce whispered desperately. Too late. Energy rounds slammed into nearby fuel pumps. Explosions illuminated the mountainside. Wolverine tore through attackers with brutal precision. But more kept arriving. Then Bruce heard something impossible. A voice through loudspeakers. "General Ross. Banner, this ends tonight." Bruce's entire body trembled violently. Memories collided together. His father shouting. Military sirens. Laboratories. There. Pain. Rage. Transformation consumed him beneath burning firelight. The Hulk erupted upward with unstoppable fury. Soldiers scattered instantly. The mountains shook beneath his roar. But these weapons were different. Gamma cannons fired concentrated bursts powerful enough to stagger even the Hulk. Ross had evolved. He had learned. And learning made him dangerous. The Hulk charged directly into military lines. Vehicles flipped violently. Shockwaves shattered trees. Wolverine fought beside the giant through smoke and burning wreckage. For several chaotic minutes, the battle resembled the end of the world. Then the Hulk saw General Ross standing atop an armored transport. Their eyes locked. The old hatred returned instantly. Ross raised the specialized weapon, a gamma harpoon launcher. He fired. Massive electrified cables pierced the Hulk's shoulder. The giant roared in agony. More harpoons followed. Gamma restraints tightened around emerald flesh. The Hulk dropped to one knee. Ross stepped forward slowly. Rain poured heavily across the battlefield. "You should have stayed dead in that desert," Ross growled. The Hulk lifted his head. And suddenly Bruce Banner's voice emerged from the monster. "Quiet. Broken. I tried." Ross froze. For one brief moment, pity crossed his face. Then explosions ripped through the mountainside. Not from the Hulk. From somewhere else. Missiles struck military vehicles. Chaos erupted instantly. Soldiers screamed. Gamma containment units exploded. Green fire spread through darkness. Wolverine looked upward sharply. Black helicopters descended through the storm. No military markings. No identification. The leader had arrived. And the real war was only beginning. Chapter 14. Gamma Fire. The helicopters opened fire without warning. Heavy machine guns shredded armored transports. Missiles carved trenches through mud and burning wreckage. General Ross shouted orders while soldiers scattered in confusion. Nobody understood who was attacking. That uncertainty made everything worse. The Hulk tore free from damaged restraints with explosive force. Metal cables snapped apart like thread. His rage intensified instantly. Now there were too many enemies. Too much noise. Too much pain. Wolverine slashed through mercenaries rappelling from helicopters. Bodies crashed into muddy earth. Rain mixed with smoke and blood. One helicopter descended low enough for loudspeakers to echo across the battlefield. Then came Samuel Stern's convoys. Dr. Banner observed how quickly civilization collapses when fear controls it. The Hulk looked upward, eyes burning green beneath endless rain. "Who talks?" Stearns continued. "You and I are the future. Humanity simply requires guidance toward evolution." Hulk hate talking man. The helicopter exploded seconds later after the Hulk hurled a military tank through its rotors. Fire consumed the sky, but Stearns was nowhere inside. The voice had been transmitted remotely. General Ross regrouped surviving troops behind damaged vehicles. For the first time in years, the military stopped targeting the Hulk. Because something even more dangerous had emerged. Coordinated gamma terrorism. Ross approached Wolverine cautiously while explosions thundered nearby. "Where is Banner?" Logan pointed toward the Hulk smashing mercenaries through armored trucks. "You're looking at him." Ross grimaced. The truth remained difficult to accept. No matter how monstrous the Hulk became, Bruce Banner still existed somewhere inside. And right now, Banner might be the only person capable of understanding Stearns. A young soldier rushed toward Ross. "Sir, multiple Gamma signatures approaching from the eastern ridge." Everyone turned. Shapes emerged slowly through smoke and heavy rain. Large, humanoid, brawn, failed Gamma experiments. Twisted creatures with distorted lens and glowing veins. Artificial monsters created by Stearns. The first creature charged. The Hulk met it with a punch powerful enough to split the earth beneath them. Battle erupted across the mountainside. Gamma monsters crashed into military lines. Soldiers fired desperately. Wolverine vanished into close combat with savage efficiency. The Hulk fought like a living earthquake. Yet more creatures kept arriving. Then Bruce Banner realized something horrifying. The monsters were not attacking randomly. They were hurting the Hulk, pushing him, guiding him toward something hidden deeper within the mountains. A trap. And somewhere beyond the storm, Samuel Stearns waited patiently, smiling. Chapter 15. Into the mountain. The storm grew violent as the battle spread across the wilderness. Lightning tore across black skies. Rain hammered burning wreckage. The mountains themselves seemed to shake beneath the Hulk's fury. Another Gamma creature lunged through smoke. Its body looked unfinished. Bones protruded through glowing flesh. Its roar sounded painfully human. The Hulk caught the creature mid-charge and slammed it into the ground hard enough to split stone. But even as the monster collapsed, Bruce Banner noticed something disturbing. They were not trying to win. They were delaying him, leading him somewhere. The Hulk looked toward the distant ridgeline. Deep within the mountains, faint green light pulsed through the storm. A hidden facility. Wolverine landed beside him after tearing through another mutant creature. "You seeing this too?" The Hulk growled. "Trap." "Yeah." General Ross approached cautiously through smoke and debris. For perhaps the first time in history, military forces and the Hulk stood on the same side. Nobody felt comfortable about it. Ross stared toward the glowing mountains. Whatever Stearns built in there, it wasn't meant to stay hidden forever. The Hulk cracked massive fists together. Hulk smashed secret place. "That is exactly what worries me," Ross muttered. Another explosion echoed from the ridge. Then came screaming. Entire groups of soldiers vanished into darkness as more Gamma creatures emerged from underground tunnels. The leader had prepared carefully. Bruce Banner's voice surfaced faintly beneath the Hulk's rage. He wants Gamma exposure. Massive exposure. Russ frowned. "Why?" "Because he thinks evolution comes through suffering." Wolverine spat rainwater into the mud. "Guy sounds cheerful." The Hulk suddenly leaped. The ground cratered beneath him. He soared through thunder and smoke toward the mountain facility. Wolverine sprinted after him. Ross shouted orders into military radios. Searchlights swept across cliffs while helicopters regrouped overhead. Everything now moved toward the same destination. Deep inside the mountain. Toward Samuel Stearns. Toward the heart of the Gamma nightmare. Chapter 16. The Hollow Men. The underground facility stretched for miles beneath the mountains. Sealed corridors. Massive generators. Laboratories glowing radioactive green. Rows upon rows of containment chambers lined enormous cavern walls. Inside each chamber floated human beings suspended in chemical fluid, or what used to be human beings. Some possessed enlarged lungs. Others had no visible faces anymore. Many appeared barely alive. Failed experiments. Discarded attempts at artificial Hulk creation. The Hulk smashed through reinforced blast doors. Metal twisted apart instantly. Wolverine entered behind him. Even Logan looked disturbed. "Jesus." The Hulk moved slowly now. For all his rage, the creature understood suffering instinctively. And suffering filled this place. Weak voices echoed faintly from containment tanks. Some begged for help. Others cried incoherently. Bruce Banner surfaced again inside the Hulk's consciousness. Horror spread through him. He experimented on civilians. Wolverine examined nearby computer terminals. Files scrolled endlessly across cracked monitors. Gamma adaptation, neural trauma integration, aggression amplification. The leader had not merely studied the Hulk. He had tried to recreate Bruce Banner's psychological suffering, because Stearns believed trauma was the key. The Hulk stopped before one containment chamber. Inside floated a young man no older than 20. The subject's body twitched violently beneath glowing liquid. Eyes opened suddenly. Terrified, the young man saw the Hulk, then whispered weakly through fluid-filled lungs, "Please?" The Hulk smashed the containment chamber apart instantly. Glass exploded across the laboratory. Chemical fluid flooded the floor. Alarms screamed. The rescued subject collapsed, coughing violently. Wolverine grabbed him before he hit the ground. Then every light inside the facility changed. Red emergency illumination flooded the corridors, and Samuel Stern's voice echoed through hidden speakers. "Dr. Banner, your empathy remains your greatest weakness." The Hulk roared upward. "Show yourself." Stearns laughed softly. "You misunderstand. I already have." Heavy footsteps shook distant corridors. Massive. Deliberate. Something enormous approached through darkness. Then it emerged. Hulk. Or at least an imitation. Taller than the original. Gray instead of green. Covered in mechanical restraints and glowing surgical implants. Its eyes looked empty. Dead. The creature opened its mouth and screamed with endless pain. Chapter 17. Gray Hulk. The artificial Hulk charged instantly. Laboratory walls shattered from the force of its movement. The real Hulk met it head-on. Impact detonated through the facility like artillery fire. Steel beams bent. Glass exploded. Entire catwalks collapsed into radioactive pits below. Wolverine dragged surviving test subjects toward safer corridors while the two giants battled through the laboratory. The gray creature fought differently. Not wild. Not emotional. Controlled. Programmed. Every strike targeted pressure points. Every movement calculated. Samuel Stearns had tried to build a perfect weapon. The Hulk roared in frustration after being slammed through reinforced machinery. The gray monster followed immediately. Massive fists hammered downward. The Hulk blocked one strike, caught another, then suddenly stopped fighting. Because beneath the gray creature's rage-filled eyes, Bruce saw terror. Human terror. The thing was conscious. Trapped. Exactly like him. The Hulk hesitated. That mistake nearly killed him. The gray creature smashed him through 3 concrete walls. Wolverine shouted from nearby, "Banner, focus!" But Bruce Banner had already surfaced inside the Hulk's mind. He looked at the artificial creature again, and remembered his father. Remembered helplessness. Remembered being trapped inside fear. The gray Hulk attacked wildly now. Not from aggression. From agony. The difference mattered. Bruce finally understood Stern's true obsession. He did not merely want Hulk soldiers. He wanted broken souls. Because pain made people easier to control. The Hulk grabbed the gray creature's fist mid-strike. Both monsters strained against each other. Shockwaves cracked surrounding walls. Then the Hulk spoke quietly. "Hulk, no hurt." The gray creature froze. Confusion flickered briefly across deadened eyes. That moment of hesitation changed everything. Samuel Stern's calm voice suddenly echoed through speakers again. Emotional instability detected. Beginning termination sequence. The gray Hulk screamed. Mechanical implants embedded throughout its body began glowing violently. Bruce realized the truth instantly. The creature was about to explode. A gamma detonation powerful enough to vaporize the entire mountain. The Hulk turned toward Wolverine. "Get everyone out." Logan looked furious. "Not leaving you." "Oh." For a brief second, Wolverine saw Bruce Banner completely inside the Hulk's eyes. Human. Afraid. Determined. Then the Hulk grabbed the great creature and leaped deeper into the facility. Straight toward the reactor core. Chapter 18. The reactor chamber. The reactor chamber looked like the center of another world. Massive energy columns pulsed through darkness. Gamma radiation flowed like liquid light between colossal machines. The air itself vibrated. Every surface glowed radioactive green. At the center of the chamber stood Samuel Stearns, the leader. He watched calmly as the Hulk crashed through steel doors carrying the unstable gray monster. Stearns smiled. "Magnificent," he whispered. The Hulk slammed the gray creature against the floor. The entire chamber shook violently. "Stop, hurt people," the Hulk roared. Stearns folded his hands behind his back. "Humanity hurts itself beautifully without my assistance. I simply accelerate the process." The gray Hulk writhed in agony. Mechanical implants overloaded. Gamma energy leaked from cracks in its skin. Seconds remained before catastrophic detonation. Bruce Banner surfaced harder now, fighting through the Hulk's rage. "He is alive," Bruce shouted. "You tortured him." Stearns tilted his enlarged head curiously. "You misunderstand suffering, Dr. Banner. Trauma creates evolution." Bruce stared at him. "No, trauma creates monsters." Stearns smiled wider. "Exactly." The reactor core suddenly intensified. Energy surged through surrounding machinery. Bruce looked around in horror. This had never been a laboratory. It was a bomb. A massive gamma ignition device buried beneath an entire mountain range. Stearns spread his arms slowly. "Imagine it, Banner. Worldwide gamma exposure. Billions transformed overnight. Humanity reborn stronger than ever before." Bruce felt sick. The Hulk growled deeply. "That talking man insane." Stearns laughed. "Insanity is merely intelligence viewed too early by lesser minds." The gray Hulk screamed again. Energy exploded outward from its body. The countdown toward detonation accelerated. Bruce realized there was no time left. No complicated plan. No scientific solution. Only sacrifice. The Hulk lifted the dying creature carefully, then looked directly at Stearns. "Hulk, strongest there is." And he jumped straight into the reactor core. Chapter 19. Gamma Storm. The mountain exploded. Not with ordinary fire. With green light brighter than the sun. Shockwaves tore across the wilderness for miles. Trees flattened instantly. Military helicopters spiraled through violent air currents. Snow melted from distant peaks. General Ross watched from evacuation lines as the entire mountain cracked open. For one horrifying moment, it looked like the apocalypse. Then came silence. A terrible silence. Deep underground, Bruce Banner drifted through endless green energy. Memories surrounded him. Childhood fear. Rebecca Banner smiling. Brian shouting. Betty laughing softly. Gamma fire. The Hulk roaring. Every fragment of his life collided together inside the storm. And somewhere within that chaos stood the Hulk. Not raging. Not smashing. Simply watching him. Bruce approached slowly. For years he had viewed the Hulk as separate. A curse. A monster. But now he finally understood. The Hulk had always protected him. Violently. Imperfectly. But faithfully. The giant looked down at Bruce. Then spoke with surprising gentleness. "No more hurt." Bruce felt tears forming. "I know." The storm intensified around them. Reality itself seemed unstable. Bruce realized they were dying. Or changing. Perhaps both. Then another voice echoed through the gamma light. Betty. Bruce. He turned. Far away within the endless green storm stood Betty Ross, reaching toward him. And for the first time in years, Bruce Banner wanted to return to the world. Not because he believed he deserved peace, but because somebody still believed he could be saved. The Hulk looked at Bruce quietly, then nodded, as if giving permission. The green storm collapsed inward. Light vanished. Darkness followed. And somewhere far above the shattered mountain, something enormous began climbing from the crater. Chapter 20. The Thing in the Crater. The mountain burned for 3 straight days. Military forces established emergency perimeters across hundreds of miles. Helicopters circled constantly through radioactive clouds. Scientists argued over impossible readings. Entire forests glowed faintly green beneath moonlight. Nobody entered the crater. Not even General Ross. Because something still moved down there. Every few hours, seismic tremors rolled outward from deep beneath the shattered earth. Massive. Deliberate. Alive. Ross stood inside a mobile command center studying satellite footage while exhausted officers moved around him. The general looked older now. The past few years had carved permanent exhaustion into his face. One young lieutenant approached carefully. Sir, recovery teams are refusing deployment. Ross barely looked up. Why? The lieutenant swallowed nervously. Because they think the Hulk survived. Ross stared silently at flickering crater footage. A part of him already knew. Nothing buried Bruce Banner for long. Not bombs. Not mountains. Not even gamma fire. Suddenly alarms erupted throughout the command center. Technicians shouted. Monitors flashed red. One scientist pointed toward seismic displays. Movement approaching surface level. Outside, soldiers rushed toward defensive lines. Searchlights illuminated the crater. The ground trembled, then exploded upward. Stone and fire erupted into the night sky. Something enormous climbed from the crater slowly. At first, nobody understood what they were seeing. The creature towered over armored vehicles, larger than the Hulk had ever been before. Its body radiated green energy like a living reactor. Cracks of glowing gamma light spread beneath emerald skin. Eyes burned like distant stars. The soldiers panicked immediately. Some raised weapons. Others backed away in terror. General Ross stepped outside the command center and stared upward. Even he looked shaken. Because this was not merely the Hulk anymore. This was something evolved. The giant looked across the military lines, then toward the dark horizon beyond. Its voice rolled like thunder. Banner, hurt. The words barely sounded human. Then the creature collapsed. The earth shook beneath the impact. Silence followed. Russ moved first. Against every survival instinct screaming inside him, he approached the unconscious giant. Radiation detectors shrieked wildly. The air itself felt heavy. Bruce Banner lay partially visible beneath fading gamma energy. Still alive. Barely. Ross stared at him for a long moment, then quietly ordered medical teams forward. Get Banner contained before he wakes up. Nobody moved. Ross turned sharply. That was an order. Slowly, terrified personnel approached the fallen Hulk. Far above them, hidden beyond storm clouds, a single black helicopter watched silently. Inside sat Samuel Stearns. Smiling. Excellent, the leader whispered. Now we begin Phase 2. Chapter 21. The Cage Below Nevada. The underground prison did not officially exist. No maps acknowledged it. No government documents referenced it. Built beneath the Nevada desert decades earlier, the facility had originally been designed for nuclear containment experiments. Now it housed something far more dangerous. Bruce Banner awakened slowly. Cold steel walls surrounded him. Gamma-resistant restraints covered his arms. Bright white lights burned overhead. Every heartbeat echoed through the chamber. For several moments he simply breathed, testing himself, waiting for the halt. But the transformation did not come. Bruce looked down. Specialized injectors remained attached to his veins. Gamma suppressants. Strong ones. The door hissed open. General Ross entered alone. No guards. No weapons visible. Bruce laughed weakly. Either you finally trust me, or this place can survive the Hulk. Ross remained expressionless. I do not trust you. Fair enough. Silence lingered. Years of hatred sat between them like a loaded weapon. Eventually Ross spoke again. You stopped Stearns from detonating the reactor. Bruce looked away. Not completely. Millions would have died otherwise. Bruce closed his eyes briefly. Memories of the Gamma storm still haunted him. The Hulk speaking. The endless green light. Something inside him had changed. He could feel it. Ross studied him carefully. You look different. Bruce smiled faintly. I feel different. The general stepped closer. Then tell me something honestly, Banner. Bruce met his gaze. Can you still control it? The question lingered heavily. Bruce wanted to lie. Wanted to say yes. Wanted to promise certainty. But Bruce Banner had spent too much of his life hiding from truth. I don't know anymore, he admitted quietly. Ross nodded once, as though he had expected exactly that answer. Then alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Both men looked upward instantly. A voice echoed through overhead speakers. Security breach detected. Multiple containment failures. Russ cursed. Bruce's pulse accelerated. The Hulk stirred immediately. Distant explosions thundered through underground corridors. Screaming followed. Bruce looked at Ross. Stearns found us. The lights abruptly died. Darkness swallowed the chamber. Then came another sound. Heavy footsteps. Massive footsteps. Something very large moved through the prison. And it was killing everyone in its path. Chapter 22. Abomination. Emergency lights flickered red through underground corridors. Smoke rolled across steel floors. Broken bodies littered shattered security checkpoints. Bruce and Ross moved quickly through the chaos while distant screams echoed deeper within the prison. The suppressants inside Bruce's bloodstream weakened rapidly. The Hulk pushed harder every second. Ross handed Bruce a sidearm while they advanced. Bruce stared at it. You know this won't help. Makes me feel better. Another explosion shook the facility. Walls cracked. Dust rained from ceilings. Then they found the survivors. A group of wounded soldiers barricaded inside a collapsed control room. One officer looked up in terror. Sir, it tore through level 7 like paper. Ross grabbed him. What tore through level 7? The soldier struggled to answer. The monster. A shadow moved beyond the ruined hallway. Huge. Deformed. Then the creature stepped into the emergency lighting. Emil Blonsky. Or what remained of him. Once a decorated soldier. Now transformed into something monstrous through stolen gamma experimentation. The Abomination. His body looked skeletal and massive at the same time. Bones protruded outward like armor. Muscles twitched naturally beneath gray-green skin. And unlike the Hulk, intelligence remained fully intact behind his eyes. That made him infinitely more dangerous. Blonsky smiled slowly. General Ross. Ross looked horrified. You were dead. Disappointingly difficult to accomplish these days. Blonsky's eyes shifted toward Bruce. Hatred burned there instantly. Banner. Bruce felt the Hulk roaring beneath his skin. Abomination stepped closer. Do you know what Stearns promised me? Nobody answered. Blonsky spread his monstrous arms. Perfection. His expression darkened. Instead, he turned me into this. The room trembled beneath his anger. Bruce understood immediately. Abomination blamed everyone. Russ, Banner, the military, the world, and wounded monsters were always the most dangerous. Blonsky lunged without warning. The control room exploded into violence. Bruce transformed mid-impact. Bones shattered outward. Green skin erupted through torn restraints. The Hulk slammed into Abomination with unstoppable force. Walls collapsed instantly. The underground prison became a war zone. Chapter 23. Monsters Underground. The Hulk and Abomination crashed through reinforced corridors like meteors. Steel twisted apart. Concrete exploded. Emergency lights shattered overhead. Every impact shook the entire underground facility. Abomination fought with terrifying precision. Years of military combat experience remained fully intact. Unlike the Hulk's instinctive rage, Blonsky attacked strategically, targeting joints, balance, weakness. The Hulk smashed through a reactor wall after taking a brutal kick to the chest. Gamma coolant flooded the corridor. Steam filled the air. Abomination stalked forward smiling. You were always weak, Banner. The Hulk roared. Hulk strongest there is. No, Blonsky hissed. You were simply first. He slammed the Hulk through another wall. The prison sirens screamed louder. Containment systems failed across multiple levels. Cells opened automatically. Experimental prisoners escaped into darkness. The entire facility descended toward catastrophe. Meanwhile, General Ross led surviving soldiers toward evacuation elevators. One young officer looked back toward distant explosions. Shouldn't we help them? Ross stopped. For several long seconds he said nothing, then quietly answered, There are no good outcomes down here anymore. Far below them, the Hulk and Abomination battled into the prison's lowest levels. Ancient sections. Forgotten sections. Places abandoned decades earlier. Massive blast doors lined cavernous hallways. Nuclear warning symbols covered rusted walls. Bruce Banner surfaced briefly inside the Hulk. Confusion spread through him. What is this place? Then he saw it. Missile silos. Dozens of them. Old Cold War nuclear warheads hidden beneath the desert. Abomination laughed. Stearns showed me everything. The monster grabbed the Hulk by the throat. Do you know what humanity does when afraid enough? He slammed the Hulk into a launch console. Ancient systems flickered away. It destroys itself. Warning alarms changed tone instantly. Nuclear launch protocols activated. Bruce felt horror flood through him. The missiles were still operational, and Abomination intended to fire them. Chapter 24. Betty returns. Betty Ross never stopped searching. Not through military secrecy. Not through lies. Not through fear. That determination finally brought her to Nevada. A stolen government access card rested inside her jacket pocket while she drove through empty desert highways beneath moonlight. Emergency military convoys raced past her heading the opposite direction. That alone told her something terrible had happened. Then the horizon flashed green. Betty slammed the brakes. Far away, deep within the desert, explosions lit the night sky. Gamma energy. Bruce. Without hesitation, she accelerated toward the danger. By the time Betty reached the outer perimeter, the underground prison had become complete chaos. Helicopters evacuated wounded soldiers. Scientists shouted contradictory orders. Entire sections of desert collapsed inward from underground damage. General Ross emerged from a command bunker covered in dust and exhaustion. He froze upon seeing her. Betty. She stepped from the vehicle. "Where's Bruce?" Russ looked away. That answer terrified her instantly. "Dad." The general finally spoke. "Underground, fighting Abomination." Betty felt cold. Years earlier she had witnessed what happened when monsters fought unchecked. Cities collapsed. People died. And Bruce blamed himself every single time. She moved toward the command bunker. Russ grabbed her arm. "You cannot go down there. Watch me. Betty, Bruce needs someone who sees him as human." The words struck harder than she intended. Russ released her slowly. Because deep down, he knew she was right. The military saw weapons. Scientists saw mutations. Politicians saw threats. Only Betty still saw Bruce Banner. And somewhere beneath the Nevada desert, Bruce desperately needed that reminder. Chapter 25. Nuclear fire. Deep underground, warning lights flashed endlessly. Missile activation detected. Automated launch systems engaged. The Hulk ripped massive cables from missile consoles while Abomination attacked relentlessly. Every second brought the launch countdown closer. Bruce Banner fought desperately for control. If the Hulk lost himself completely, millions could die. Abomination hurled the Hulk across the silo chamber. The giant crashed through steel scaffolding. "Look around you," Blonsky roared. "This is humanity's true face. Weapons, fear, power." The Hulk rose slowly through falling debris. Green eyes burning. Hulk hate hurting people. Abomination laughed viciously. "Then you are weaker than I imagined." He charged. The two monsters collided beside active nuclear warheads. Shockwaves thundered through the underground complex. One missile detached partially from its launch cradle. Bruce saw targeting systems activating. Cities. Entire cities. He forced himself harder into consciousness. "Stop fighting," Bruce shouted internally. The Hulk resisted. Rage overwhelmed everything. Then another voice cut through the chaos. "Betty." "Bruce." Both monsters paused. Far across the silo chamber, Betty Ross stood near an emergency elevator surrounded by terrified soldiers. The Hulk stared at her, and instantly calmed. Not completely, but enough. Enough for Bruce Banner to surface. His voice emerged from the Hulk softly. "You shouldn't be here." Betty stepped closer despite everyone's panic. "Neither should you." Abomination roared furiously. Pathetic. He lunged toward Betty. The Hulk moved past her. Much faster. Pure protective instinct exploded through him. He intercepted Abomination mid-charge. The resulting impact cracked the missile silo floor. Then the Hulk did something different. Something controlled. Instead of blind rage, every strike became focused. Precise. The Hulk was learning. Bruce Banner and the Hulk were beginning to move together. For the first time ever. Abomination realized it too late. The Hulk smashed him through a missile launch column. Ancient machinery collapsed. Explosions rippled through the silo. Missile systems shut down instantly. But the underground complex itself began collapsing. Massive cracks spread across support structures. The entire desert trembled. Everyone had minutes left before total cave-in. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the silo, Samuel Stearns continued watching everything unfold. Waiting. Always waiting. Chapter 26. The collapse begins. The underground facility groaned like a dying giant. Steel beams twisted under impossible stress. Concrete fractured in long glowing veins as gamma energy seeped through the structure. Every alarm in the complex screamed at once. There was no longer any order. Only survival. The Hulk stood in the center of the collapsing silo chamber, breathing heavily. Abomination lay partially buried beneath shattered launch machinery, still alive, still moving. Betty Ross remained frozen near the emergency corridor entrance, watching both monsters with terror and hope tangled together. Bruce Banner's voice trembled inside the Hulk. "We have to get everyone out." The Hulk growled softly. "Tunnel breaking. No time." Another deep structural collapse echoed through the desert above. Miles of sand began sinking downward. The entire facility was becoming a sinkhole. Ross's voice crackled over distant intercom speakers. "All personnel evacuate immediately. I repeat, evacuate now." But most exits were already gone. Abomination slowly rose from the rubble. One arm hung at an unnatural angle. He laughed through broken teeth. "Too late, Banner. Everything you touch breaks." The Hulk stepped forward. But this time, Bruce did not retreat. He stayed present. Inside the Hulk's mind. "Together." "No more," Bruce whispered. The Hulk responded. "No more." They moved as one. The Hulk grabbed Abomination and hurled him through the collapsing silo wall. Not with rage. With purpose. A path opened. A direct line upward through fractured earth. Betty realized instantly. He's creating an escape route. Ross stared in disbelief. That thing is thinking strategically. Betty didn't answer. She was already running toward the opening. Chapter 27. Escape through fire. The ground above split open in violent arcs. Desert sand poured downward like an ocean collapsing into itself. Emergency lights vanished beneath dust storms. The Hulk carried collapsing survivors one by one through rising tunnels of debris. Soldiers, scientists, even injured technicians from Stern's earlier sabotage. Each rescue strained him further. Each step risked another transformation surge. Abomination pursued relentlessly through the destruction. Every impact he made destabilized the tunnel further. He wanted collapse. He wanted everyone buried. "Let it end here," he roared. The Hulk turned mid-motion. Hulk, not let people die. The two collided again inside a narrowing corridor of falling stone. Above them, the desert surface was tearing apart. Lightning struck exposed gamma vents. Green fire erupted upward into the night sky. Betty ran through a collapsing maintenance tunnel, barely avoiding falling concrete. Ross followed behind, shouting for remaining soldiers to regroup. But something else was coming. A deeper tremor. Not structural. Intentional. Samuel Stearns had activated final fail-safes. Far beneath the battlefield, dormant systems began awakening. Not missiles this time. Something worse. Chapter 28. Stearns in game. In a hidden subterranean chamber miles away from the collapsing prison, the leader observed everything through fractured satellite feeds. Monitors flickered violently as energy interference spread across the region. Still, he smiled. "Perfect," Stearns whispered. Around him stood rows of containment cylinders, each holding partially stabilized gamma entities. Not failures. Not accidents. Preparations. His true army. Stearns tapped a glowing control panel. Begin synchronization. Across the Nevada desert, buried systems activated. Gamma transmitters buried in old Cold War infrastructure began pulsing in coordinated rhythm. Energy spread outward like a heartbeat. Every exposed gamma mutation in the region responded, including the Hulk. Bruce Banner felt it instantly. A pressure in his mind. A pulling sensation. Like something trying to rewrite him from the inside. The Hulk staggered briefly. Abomination noticed immediately. "There it is," Blonsky growled. "Control signal." The Hulk shook his head violently. No control. But Stern's system was not command-based. It was resonance-based. Designed to amplify trauma. To turn pain into obedience. Bruce realized the truth too late. He's activating every gamma mutation nearby. Ross's voice broke through collapsing comms. "Banner, what is happening?" Bruce shouted back. "He's turning everything into weapons." The desert began to glow. Distant figures rose from underground fractures. Earlier experiments. Failed soldiers. Gamma-drenched creatures long thought dead. All responding to Stern's signal. An army awakening beneath the earth. Chapter 29. The Gamma Rising. The first wave emerged at the crater's edge. Dozens of twisted forms crawling out of sand and broken metal. Some humanoid. Some unrecognizable. All connected by glowing veins of unstable gamma energy. They moved as one toward the collapsing facility. Toward the Hulk. Toward Abomination. Toward Betty and Ross. Wolverine arrived through the chaos seconds later, leaping from a wrecked transport helicopter. Claws extended. "This just keeps getting better," he muttered. He immediately engaged the advancing swarm. But there were too many. Far too many. The Hulk saw them approaching and hesitated. Bruce Banner felt it deeply. "They are not attacking randomly," he said. "They are being guided." Abomination laughed. "Welcome to evolution." He charged into the swarm, tearing through gamma creatures with brutal efficiency. But every fallen creature fed energy back into Stern's system. The network grew stronger. Betty reached an exposed ridge overlooking the collapsing prison. She saw everything. The Hulk fighting. Abomination tearing through mutants. Wolverine holding back waves of monsters. And beneath it all, something worse. A coordinated system turning suffering into control. "Bruce," she whispered. "He's using pain itself as a signal." The Hulk looked upward briefly. For a moment, everything slowed. And Bruce understood. Stearns had built a world where trauma never ended. Where every injury strengthened the system. Where every monster created more monsters. The Hulk clenched his fists. Then Hulk break system. He turned toward the deepest point of collapse. Toward the signal source. Toward Stearns. Chapter 30. The Final Descent. The remaining structure beneath the desert began collapsing into itself. Entire sections dropped into glowing voids of gamma energy. The Hulk moved forward alone now. Abomination followed behind, refusing to yield ground. Wolverine escorted Betty and Ross toward evacuation routes while fighting through endless mutated attackers. Above them, helicopters struggled to maintain position in violent electromagnetic storms. Inside the core of the facility, Stearns watched everything converge. "Yes," he whispered. "Come to me." Bruce Banner's voice grew steadier inside the Hulk. "He wants confrontation." The Hulk answered. "Then Hulk give him." They reached the central chamber, a vast underground cathedral of machines. At its center stood Samuel Stearns, the leader, surrounded by pulsing gamma towers. The entire system humming with unstable energy. Stearns turned slowly. "Dr. Banner." The Hulk stepped forward. "Stop hurting people." Stearns smiled. "I am improving them." Abomination entered behind the Hulk, snarling. "Enough speeches." The chamber trembled. Stearns opened his arms. "This is not a battle. It is evolution." He activated the core. Every gamma tower ignited at once. The entire system began collapsing into singularity-level energy. Bruce realized the truth. This was not control. This was extinction. The Hulk looked at Stearns, then at the collapsing system, then at everything he had protected. And finally, he made a choice. No more hurting world. He grabbed the central reactor column and pulled. Chapter 31. The reactor breaks. The central reactor column groaned under impossible force. Gamma energy surged upward in violent spirals, tearing through the underground cathedral of machines. Stearns watched calmly as the Hulk pulled, as if this outcome had already been calculated, as if resistance itself was part of the design. The Hulk roared with strain. Muscles rippled beneath glowing green skin. The structure began to fracture. But instead of collapsing outward, the reactor responded. It adapted. Energy lines shifted. The system rebalanced. Stearns smiled wider. "You see, Banner," he said softly, "destruction is just another form of input." Bruce Banner's voice tightened inside the Hulk. "It's learning from him." The Hulk stepped back suddenly, confused. The reactor was not dying. It was evolving. Abomination lunged forward from behind. "Then we break it harder." He slammed both fists into the reactor core. A shockwave erupted through the chamber. Entire rows of gamma towers collapsed. For a moment, silence followed. Then the system laughed. Not literally, but in energy form. A pulse of green light spread outward like a heartbeat, and every mutated subject connected to Stearns' network screamed at once. Chapter 32. The network awakens. Across the Nevada desert, the gamma-rising swarm stopped moving. Every creature, every failed experiment, every corrupted soldier, they froze in place, then turned their heads toward the facility. As one, Wolverine felt it immediately. A pressure in the air. A directionless command that was not spoken but felt. "That's new," Logan muttered. He sliced through two advancing mutants, but more replaced them instantly. Betty grabbed Ross's arm as the ground trembled again. "It's not just controlling them," she said. Ross stared at the horizon. "It's synchronizing them." Deep underground, Bruce understood fully now. He turned the entire system into a brain. The Hulk growled. "Great brain." Stearns tilted his head. "You misunderstand," he replied. "This is not control. It is unity." The reactor expanded. Walls of the chamber began dissolving into pure gamma light. Reality itself felt unstable. Abomination staggered back. "What is this?" Stearns raised one hand. "Evolution does not require individuality." The Hulk stepped forward again. But this time, hesitation lingered inside him. Because something in the system was reaching back. Not attacking. Recognizing. The Hulk froze. Bruce Banner's mind widened suddenly. He saw it. Every creature connected. Every mind bleeding into the network. And at the center, Stearns, holding it all together. Chapter 33. The Choice of Monsters. The chamber shook violently as the reactor reached critical instability. Stearns walked slowly toward the Hulk, completely unafraid. "You feel them, don't you?" he said. "Every broken mind, every fractured memory." The Hulk growled. "Stop talking." Stearns continued anyway. "They are not victims. They are foundations." Abomination charged again. The Hulk intercepted him midair and slammed him into the floor. But even as he did, Bruce felt something terrible. Connection. Every creature in the network was suffering. But they were also aware. Aware of each other. Aware of him. And they were reaching. Not to attack, but to be understood. Bruce Banner's voice cracked. "They are still people." The Hulk hesitated. That hesitation nearly cost him everything. Stearns activated the core directly. Energy spiraled upward. The entire chamber began collapsing into a singular gamma collapse state. A controlled apocalypse. "If I cannot guide evolution," Stearns said calmly, "then I will force its birth." The Hulk looked at him. At the system. At the suffering minds. At Abomination struggling beneath his grip. Then at Bruce Banner within himself. A decision formed. Not rage. Not instinct. Choice. Alf, decide. Bruce whispered. "We don't destroy them." The Hulk looked up. "Then what?" Bruce answered. "We take it into us." For the first time, the Hulk did not reject the idea. He accepted it. Chapter 34. The Absorption. The reactor collapsed inward violently. Gamma energy exploded outward in all directions. Stearns laughed as the system reached final convergence. Yes, become whole. The network surged. Every mutated consciousness connected to the system was pulled toward the center point, toward the Hulk. Abomination roared. No, but it was too late. The Hulk opened his arms, and the Gamma storm entered him. Millions of fragmented signals flooded Bruce Banner's mind. Pain, fear, confusion, memory, every broken subject, every lost experiment, every mind Stearns had rewritten. All of it poured into the Hulk at once. He screamed, not from pain alone, from understanding. Bruce Banner saw everything, not as chaos, but as suffering trying to exist. The Hulk fell to one knee. Stearns watched, fascinated. You cannot contain it, he said softly. Bruce answered through the Hulk. I already am. The energy continued pouring inward. Abomination was pulled in next. He resisted, then stopped. For the first time, confusion replaced rage. What is this? Bruce saw him too. Not enemy. Not monster. Broken soldier. Just like him. The reactor core began collapsing completely. Stearns realized too late what was happening. No, this is not possible. The Hulk stood, surrounded by infinite Gamma consciousness, and spoke. Enough hurt. He pulled, not outward, inward. The entire network folded into him. Screens faded, light condensed. The system broke. Chapter 35. Silence after the storm. The Nevada desert fell silent. The underground facility collapsed completely into itself. A massive crater replaced everything. No signals remained. No Gamma readings. No life signatures. Military forces approached cautiously. Ross stood at the crater edge. Betty stood beside him. Wolverine arrived moments later, injured but alive. Nobody spoke, because something had changed. The air felt different. Not radioactive. Not dangerous. Just empty. Betty stepped forward first. Bruce. Silence answered. Then, a hand rose slowly from beneath broken earth. Green. Calm. No rage. No trembling. The Hulk emerged. But he was different. Still massive. Still powerful. But quiet. Bruce Banner's eyes opened within him. Fully conscious. Fully present. Oh. He looked at Betty. And spoke softly. I hear them now. Ross raised the weapon instinctively. Wolverine stepped forward slightly. But Betty did not move. Hear who? Bruce looked down. Everyone. A pause. Then he added quietly. And they are not screaming anymore. Far beneath the crater, something pulsed faintly. Not alive. Not dead. Changed. And somewhere far beyond observation, Samuel Stearns' last transmission looped endlessly into silence. A single phrase repeating into nothing. Evolution achieved. Then it stopped. But Bruce Banner did not move. Because for the first time in his life, the noise inside his mind was gone. And he was not alone in it. Chapter 36. The Quiet Hulk. The crater did not feel like a battlefield anymore. It felt like a wound that had finally stopped bleeding. The Hulk stood at its center. Still enormous. Still unmistakable. But no longer lost in rage. Bruce Banner's awareness remained fully present inside him. Not fighting. Not fading. Coexisting. Betty Ross stepped carefully down the broken slope toward him. Every instinct told her to be afraid. But she wasn't. Not anymore. Bruce, she said softly. The Hulk looked at her. then nodded once. "Hello, Betty." Her breath caught. It was his voice, but deeper. "Shared." Behind them, General Ross lowered his weapon slowly. Not because he trusted what he saw, but because he could not deny it. Something fundamental had changed. Wolverine stood slightly apart, arms crossed, watching in silence. "Well," Logan muttered, "that's new." The ground beneath them gave a faint pulse. Not seismic, not explosive, almost like a heartbeat. Bruce felt it immediately. Inside the Hulk's mind, the network was gone, but not erased. Contained, sleeping within him. Thousands of fractured gamma minds, no longer screaming, but aware. Waiting. Coherent. Silent. Betty stepped closer. "What are you now?" Bruce hesitated, then answered honestly. "Still me." A pause. "Just not alone." Chapter 37. Aftermath Protocol. 3 days later. Military containment zones surrounded the Nevada crater. Scientific teams from multiple nations arrived under strict clearance. No one agreed on what they were studying. A disaster site, a miracle, or a warning. General Ross stood inside a mobile operations tent reviewing reports that contradicted each other at every level. Gamma levels, 0. Life signs, unstable. Environmental readings, impossible equilibrium. One technician approached. "Sir, the subject is still in the crater." Ross frowned. "Subject?" The technician swallowed. "Banner, he hasn't moved." Outside, the Hulk remained seated at the center of the crater. Motionless. Eyes open. Breathing slow. Like he was listening to something no one else could hear. Betty approached alone despite warnings. No escort. No protection. Just her. She stopped a few meters away. "Bruce." The Hulk looked up. "They are confused," he said quietly. Betty frowned. "Who?" A long silence. Then Bruce answered. "The ones inside." Her expression tightened. "They're still there?" He nodded. Not hurting anymore, but still there. Wolverine's voice came from behind. "That sounds like a problem waiting to happen." Bruce looked toward him. "It already happened. We're just learning how to live with it." Chapter 38. The first disturbance. It began with a tremor. Faint. Deep underground. Barely noticeable. Then another. Bruce felt it instantly. His posture changed. Betty noticed. "What is it?" The Hulk's eyes narrowed. "Not here. Inside. Far beneath the crater." Something stirred. One of the gamma consciousness fragments. Not hostile. Not violent. But waking. Bruce closed his eyes. Inside his mind, a single voice emerged. Small. Lost. "Where am I?" Bruce answered internally. "Safe." A pause. Then more voices. Not all at once. Slow. Careful. Like children waking after a long nightmare. Betty stepped closer. "Bruce, you're shaking." He was. Not from fear. From pressure. Holding them. All of them. Ross approached from the ridge. "If this gets unstable." Bruce interrupted. "It won't." A beat. Then softer. "Because I won't let it." Chapter 39. The burden of many minds. Days turned into weeks. The Hulk did not leave the crater. Not because he was trapped, but because he chose not to. Bruce learned to listen, to separate voices, to calm storms inside storms. Each gamma consciousness behaved differently. Some remembered pain. Some remembered nothing at all. Some remembered only fragments of lives that no longer existed. Betty returned daily, sometimes bringing food, sometimes just sitting beside him. Wolverine visited less frequently, but always watched from a distance when he did. Ross never fully relaxed. He kept military presence nearby, just in case. One evening, Betty finally asked, "Are you still the Hulk when they speak?" Bruce thought for a long time, then answered, "I think I am the place they speak through." She looked at him carefully. "And if they get louder?" A pause. The wind moved through the crater. "Slow. Cold. Then I get stronger," he said. Chapter 40. The signal returns. It happened without warning. A pulse. Distant. Familiar. Bruce's eyes snapped open. Every voice inside him went silent at once. Betty immediately noticed. "Bruce?" The Hulk stood, slowly, head turning toward the horizon, far beyond Nevada, across continents. Something answered Stern's dead system. Not the same signal, but related. A harmonic echo. Bruce whispered. He wasn't alone. Wolverine arrived within hours after hearing the alert broadcasts. "Tell me that wasn't what I think it was," Logan said. Bruce didn't answer immediately, because he could already feel it. New consciousness forming. Different. Structured. Intentional. Betty stepped forward. "Another leader?" Bruce shook his head slowly. "Not another." A pause. A response. Ross's voice came through radio static. "Banner, identify threat." Bruce looked toward the sky, eyes narrowing. Something learned from what we became. A long silence followed. Then Bruce added quietly, "And it's coming to finish the experiment." Chapter 41. The Echo Intelligence. The signal did not arrive like the first one had. It did not erupt. It did not break the sky. It arrived quietly, like a thought that did not belong to anyone. Bruce Banner felt it first. Standing at the edge of the Nevada crater, he froze. The Hulk within him did not move. Neither did the voices. Every gamma consciousness inside him went still at once. Not asleep. Listening. Betty noticed immediately. "Bruce?" He did not answer. His eyes were focused far beyond the horizon, far beyond the Earth itself in feeling, if not distance. "It's different," Bruce whispered. Wolverine stepped closer. "Different how?" Bruce's voice tightened. "It's not chaos." A pause. "It's structure." General Ross's voice crackled through military comms. "We're picking up global gamma fluctuations, every monitoring station, all at once." Silence followed that statement, because everyone understood what it implied. Something had awakened everywhere. Not localized, not experimental, systemic. Chapter 42. The pattern beneath the world. Satellites began failing one by one. Not destroyed, not jammed, rewritten. Their data streams changed mid-transmission into repeating mathematical patterns. Military analysts panicked. Scientists argued. But Bruce already understood. He closed his eyes. Inside his mind, the gamma consciousness fragments stirred again, but not randomly. In sequence, like cells responding to a larger organism. One voice spoke, then another, then another. Not chaos. Coordination. Bruce's breathing slowed. "It's building itself again," he said. Betty shook her head. "Stearns is gone." Bruce looked at her. "Not him." A pause. "What he started." Wolverine exhaled slowly. "So we didn't win." Bruce answered quietly. "We changed the shape of it." Chapter 43. Awakening across continents. It began in isolated places. A research station in Siberia went dark. Then came reports from deep ocean monitoring facilities. Then desert observation posts. Everywhere humanity had once experimented with gamma energy. Something responded. Not monsters. Not failures. Awakened consciousness nodes. Each one forming independently. Each one calling out in patterns Bruce could feel in his bones. He dropped to one knee. The Hulk inside him shuddered. Betty rushed forward. "What's happening to you?" Bruce struggled to speak. "They're connecting." Russ's voice cut through again. "Banner, explain." Bruce finally opened his eyes. "It's like Stern's system," he said. "But it didn't die. It fractured." A pause. Then softer. "And now it's remembering how to be whole." Wolverine's expression darkened. "And what does whole mean for something like that?" Bruce didn't answer immediately, because he was afraid of the answer. Then he said it anyway. Global awareness. Chapter 44. The first contact event. The sky over the crater changed color. Not green. Not red. Something between perception states. A shimmer that made depth itself feel uncertain. Bruce stood. The Hulk rose with him. Unified. Every voice inside him aligned for the first time since the absorption. Not screaming. Not speaking. Waiting. Betty stepped back instinctively. "Bruce." He raised the hand. "It's here." Ross ordered perimeter defenses activated immediately. Searchlights turned upward. Missile systems tracked empty sky. Wolverine extended his claws slowly. "I've got a bad feeling about this." Then it arrived. Not a ship. Not an object. A presence. Like thought made visible across the atmosphere. Every gamma node on Earth responded at once. Bruce felt them all. Every fragment. Every echo. Every mind Stearns had ever touched. And something new. Something not human. It spoke. Not in words. In understanding. Bruce answered instinctively. Not aloud. Inside. "Who are you?" The response was immediate. "We are continuation." Chapter 45. The continuation. The words did not echo. They simply existed. Betty looked at Bruce, terrified. "What did it say?" Bruce swallowed. "It doesn't think we're separate." Ross barked over comms. "Banner, you are not authorized to communicate with." Bruce interrupted. "It already knows us." The presence expanded. Not physically. Conceptually. Like reality becoming aware of being observed. The Hulk tightened his stance. For the first time in a long time, Bruce felt uncertainty from him. Not fear. Recognition. Wolverine stepped closer. "Tell me we can punch this one." Bruce almost smiled, but it faded quickly. "No," he said. A pause. "This isn't something you fight." Betty's voice broke slightly. "Then what is it?" Bruce looked at the sky. At the impossible presence. At the echo of Stern's legacy becoming something else entirely. And answered quietly. "It's what happens when evolution stops waiting." Chapter 46. The decision point. Every gamma consciousness inside Bruce aligned again. But differently this time. Not under Stearns. Not under chaos. Under choice. The presence above them waited. Patient. Observing. Learning. Bruce felt the question forming before it was even spoken. Join. Or resist. Betty stepped forward. "Bruce, don't." He held up a hand gently. "I know." Wolverine's claws remained extended. Ross prepared every remaining defense system. But Bruce Banner closed his eyes. Inside the Hulk, the many minds waited. Not screaming anymore. not fracture. Listening. Bruce spoke softly. Not to them. To himself. We started this trying to stop monsters. A pause. But we became something else. He opened his eyes. Green light reflected in them. Calm. Stable. Oh. Now we decide what that means. The presence responded. We are waiting. Bruce took a breath and stepped forward into the unknown. Chapter 47. Stepping beyond the crater. Bruce Banner stepped forward. Not metaphorically. Not symbolically. Physically. The ground beneath the Nevada crater did not resist him. It felt acknowledged, as if the world itself had been waiting for this exact movement. The Hulk moved with him. Not behind. Not in front. Together. Betty's voice trembled. Bruce, stop, please. He did not turn back. Because if he did, he might remain. And remaining was no longer possible. Wolverine stepped forward half a pace, claws still extended. If this goes wrong, Logan said quietly, there's no undoing it. Bruce nodded once. I know. General Ross's voice cut sharply through the comm system. Banner, you are ordering an immediate withdrawal. The signal broke. Not interference. Rejection. Something in the sky above had answered first. We are not a threat. We are a rival. Chapter 48. The atmospheric mine. The sky stopped behaving like sky. Clouds did not move. They aligned. Weather systems across continents paused in synchronization. Every satellite still functioning turned toward the same point above Nevada. Bruce felt it more clearly now. Not above. Ground. Inside perception. The presence was not in orbit. It was an understanding. The gamma consciousness fragments within Bruce stirred. But they did not fracture. They resonated. Betty whispered, "It's getting closer." Bruce finally spoke. "No." A pause. "It's getting clearer." The Hulk's eyes narrowed. Not in anger. In recognition. Wolverine exhaled slowly. "I fought gods before," Logan muttered. "They usually bleed." Bruce answered without looking at him. "This one doesn't want to." Chapter 49. First translation. The presence changed. Not its form. Its language. What had once been incomprehensible began resolving into structure. Not words. Intent. Bruce staggered slightly. The Hulk steadied him internally. Betty rushed forward. "What's happening to you?" Bruce blinked slowly. "It's learning how I think." Russ barked orders in the background. Military units repositioned. Missile systems locked on to empty coordinates. Useless. Pointless. Because there was nothing to aim at. The sky shimmered again. And Bruce understood the first complete idea. We were not made. We emerged. Wolverine frowned. That doesn't sound comforting. Bruce almost smiled. It isn't meant to be. Chapter 50. The choice expands. The presence widened. Not outward. Inclusive. Every gamma consciousness on Earth felt it. Not as control. As invitation. Inside Bruce, thousands of minds reacted. Some afraid. Some curious. Some silent. The Hulk tightened slightly. Not aggression. Focus. Betty looked between Bruce and the sky. What does it want? Bruce closed his eyes. It doesn't want anything. A pause. It is asking what we are willing to become. Ross stepped closer. That is not an answer. Bruce nodded. No, it's a mirror. The ground beneath them pulsed once. Slow. Like a heartbeat responding. Chapter 51. Wolverine's test. Logan stepped forward fully now. claws still extended, eyes locked on Bruce. "All right, Banner," he said. "Simple question." Bruce looked at him. "Go ahead." Wolverine gestured upward. "Whatever that is, if it decides Earth is part of it, do we get a say?" Silence followed. Not from Bruce. From the presence. It was listening, waiting for definition. Bruce inhaled slowly. The Hulk within him remained still. Then Bruce answered. "We are still deciding what we means." The sky responded. "Accepted." Wolverine lowered his claws slightly. "That's not a no," he muttered. "It's not a yes either," Bruce replied. "It's a beginning." Chapter 52. The expansion of self. Began the consciousness inside Bruce shifted again. But this time, it did not feel like pressure. It felt like growth. Not loss of identity. Reorganization. The Hulk spoke internally. Many inside, not hurting. Bruce responded. "I know." Betty stepped closer. She placed a hand gently on his arm. "You're still here." Bruce looked at her. "So are they." A pause. "All of them." Ross tightened his jaw. "This is containment failure at a planetary scale." Bruce shook his head. "No." A longer pause. "It's containment becoming awareness." The sky pulsed again. And for the first time, Bruce felt it clearly. The presence was not outside humanity. It was what humanity had been becoming through everything that had happened. Chapter 53. The Threshold Event. The atmosphere above Nevada brightened. Not with light. With recognition. Every gamma node on Earth synchronized at once. Not controlled. Blind. Bruce felt his breath slow. The Hulk stood completely still. For the first time, there was no division between them. Betty stepped back slightly. "Bruce, what are you doing?" He answered softly. "Listening." The presence formed its final translation. Not command. Not request. Definition. We are what happens when life does not end where it begins. Silence followed. Ross lowered his weapon fully. Wolverine looked away slightly. "I hate cosmic conversations," he muttered. Bruce stepped forward one final time. Toward the sky. Toward the unknown intelligence. Toward the next stage. And spoke. "Then show us what comes next." The world held its breath. And answered. Chapter 54. The answer arrives. The sky did not open. It clarified. As if a veil had been lifted from reality itself. Bruce Banner stood at the center of the Nevada crater, still and listening. The Hulk within him was no longer restless. No longer divided. Something new had settled between them. Not control. Not dominance. Alignment. Betty stood a few steps behind him, barely breathing. Wolverine remained off to the side, watching the horizon like it might bite. General Ross had ordered full containment readiness, but no one had the will to act. Because the world felt different now. Not safer. Not more dangerous. Just to wait. Then the voice returned. Not inside Bruce. Not outside. Everywhere at once. We have arrived at recognition. Bruce closed his eyes. "You're not coming," he said softly. A pause. Then the presence responded. "We were always here." Chapter 55. The first boundary. Wolverine broke the silence first. "All right," he muttered. "That's creepy." Betty didn't look away from Bruce. "What does it mean?" Bruce inhaled slowly. The Hulk's awareness shifted with him. Not reacting. Observing. "It means," Bruce said carefully, "it was never separate from us." Ross stepped forward sharply. "That is not acceptable as an answer." Bruce turned slightly. "It's not meant to be acceptable." A distant tremor rolled through the earth. But it was not seismic. It was conceptual, like the planet itself adjusting to thought. The presence expanded its clarity again. We are the sum of what remains after isolation fails. Wolverine narrowed his eyes. So what? We're part of it now. Bruce shook his head. No. A pause. We always were. We just didn't know how to hear it. Chapter 56. Gamma silence. For the first time since the catastrophe, the gamma readings across Earth stabilized. Not dropped. Not spiked. Balanced. Every monitoring station reported the same anomaly, silence. But it was not absence. It was coherence. Inside Bruce, the fractured consciousnesses no longer pressed against him. They existed within. Wolverine stepped closer now. So what happens next? Bruce opened his eyes. For a moment, they reflected something deeper than green. That depends, he said. Betty frowned. On what? Bruce looked toward the sky. On whether we answer as one or many. Chapter 57. The echo lands. Far beyond Earth, something responded. Not a ship. Not a being in the traditional sense. A structure of awareness, expanding through patterns of energy that did not obey distance. The presence Bruce had first felt began to differentiate. It was no longer singular. It was becoming interpretive. Across continents, gamma-sensitive individuals experienced identical dreams. A vast green horizon. A quiet pulse beneath reality. A question without language. Inside the crater, Bruce staggered slightly. Betty caught his arm. Bruce. He steadied. It's learning faster, he said. Wolverine tilted his head. Learning what? Bruce answered. S. Chapter 58. The first divergence. Something changed. Not externally. Internally. Inside Bruce, one of the gamma consciousness fragments spoke alone. Not in fear. Not in confusion. In curiosity. Why am I here? Bruce froze. The Hulk sensed it too. Not all fragments were aligned anymore. Not all agreed. Betty noticed his expression shift. What is it now? Bruce hesitated. Individual thought, he said quietly. Ross immediately reacted. That's instability. Bruce shook his head. No. A pause. That's identity returning. The sky flickered once. Not violently. Gently. Like acknowledgement. Chapter 59. Wolverine's warning. Logan stepped in front of Bruce slightly. I don't like things that start as we and end as something else. Bruce looked at him. Neither do I. Wolverine pointed upward. That thing up there, whatever it is, it's rewriting the rules as it goes. Bruce nodded slowly. Yes. A pause. But so are we. Betty's voice softened. Are we still in control of this? Bruce didn't answer immediately. Because control implied separation. And separation no longer fully applied. Finally, he said, we're in conversation with it. Chapter 60. The decision that was not one. The presence above Earth shifted again. Not closer. Not further. More aware of differentiation. We observed divergence. Bruce felt it immediately. The gamma consciousness inside him reacted. Not as one mind. As many. Some calm. Some uncertain. Some afraid. The Hulk stepped forward. For the first time since the merging, his voice felt distinct inside Bruce. Hulk not sure, it said. Bruce answered inwardly. Neither am I. Betty watched him carefully. Bruce, what are you deciding? He looked at her. And for the first time, the answer was not absolute. I don't think it's asking us to decide, he said. A pause. I think it's asking us to become something that can. The sky brightened slightly. Acknowledgement, acceptance, and something like anticipation. Wolverine exhaled. Great, he muttered. Cosmic peer pressure. Bruce almost smiled, but his eyes remained fixed upward, because whatever came next was already beginning to arrive. Chapter 61. The arrival form. The sky did not break. It condensed. Over Nevada, above the crater where Bruce Banner stood, reality seemed to fold inward upon itself in slow motion. Not destruction, not creation. Convergence. Bruce stood still. The Hulk within him was no longer restless, no longer divided, but attentive, fully present. Beside him, Betty Ross watched the sky with quiet fear she refused to name. General Thaddeus Ross remained at the perimeter command line, issuing orders that were increasingly ignored by the machines meant to obey them. And Wolverine, Logan, stood with arms crossed, claws half visible, as if deciding whether physics still applied. Then the presence changed again. Not in voice, in shape. We have learned your persistence. Bruce exhaled slowly. You're taking form, he said. A pause. Then the response arrived. Form is interpretation. Chapter 62. The first manifestation. The air above the crater thickened. Not with smoke. Not with radiation. With structure. Lines of green light traced invisible geometry across the sky. Wolverine frowned. That looks like math, he muttered. Bruce nodded slightly. It is. Betty stepped closer to Bruce. What kind of math? Bruce did not look away from the sky. The kind that decides what reality agrees to be. The Hulk shifted internally. Not aggression. Recognition. Something old inside him responded to the pattern, as if it had seen it before, somewhere beyond memory. Then it arrived. Not a being. Not a machine. A stabilized projection of structured consciousness. At present shaped like continuity itself. And it spoke again. We are closer now. Chapter 63. Reaction on the ground. Military systems across Nevada failed simultaneously. Not explosions. Not sabotage. Consensus collapse. Every system attempting to target the anomaly simply stopped agreeing on what targeting meant. General Ross stared at the readouts. Explain this, he demanded. A technician shook his head. Sir, the systems aren't malfunctioning. They are disagreeing. Ross turned sharply. Machines do not disagree. The technician hesitated. They do now. Wolverine looked up at the sky. Yeah, he said quietly. That's not comforting. Betty held her breath. Bruce, what is it doing? Bruce finally answered. It's trying to become understandable. Chapter 64. Bruce Banner's boundary. Inside Bruce Banner's mind, the gamma consciousness fragments stirred. Not as chaos. As witnesses. Each one reacting differently to the emerging structure above them. Some aligned. Some resisted. Some simply observed. The Hulk spoke internally. Not enemy, it said. Bruce responded. Not yet. Betty stepped in front of him slightly. If it becomes something we can understand, she said carefully, does that make it safe? Bruce considered this, then shook his head. Understanding and safety are not the same thing. A pause. But it's the first step toward either. Chapter 65. Wolverine's line. Logan stepped forward slightly. Claws extended fully now. Not in attack. In warning. I've seen things like this before, he said. Bruce looked at him. No, you haven't. Wolverine gave a short, humorless smile. Fair, but I've seen things that start calm and end with cities gone. Bruce nodded. So have I. A silence followed. Then Logan gestured toward the sky. What's the difference this time? Bruce answered without hesitation. We're part of it. That statement landed heavily. Betty's voice softened. That sounds like surrender. Bruce turned slightly toward her. No. A pause. It sounds like responsibility. Chapter 66. The shape speaks back. The structured presence above Nevada shifted again. This time, it responded not with statement, but with limitation. We cannot continue without definition. Bruce felt the gamma consciousness inside him tighten. Not fear. Focus. General Ross raised his voice through comms. Banner, do not engage further. That is an order. Bruce did not respond to him. He spoke upward instead. Define yourselves. A pause. The sky dimmed slightly. Then answered. We are what persists when isolated systems converge without collapse. Wolverine exhaled. That's a long way of saying we figured something out. Bruce nodded. Yes. Chapter 67. The Gamma Agreement. Inside Bruce, something shifted. The absorbed consciousnesses responded to the presence. Not as a hive. As individuals within a shared boundary. Bruce felt it clearly now. They were no longer trapped. They were participating. The Hulk stepped forward internally. Hulk, understand now, it said. Bruce responded. So do I. Betty watched him carefully. Understand what? Bruce looked at her. And for the first time, his expression was not burdened. It was precise. But it didn't come here to invade, he said. A pause. It came to be recognized. The sky brightened once more. Approval. Chapter 68. The first shared thought. Something unexpected happened. The presence did not speak. It thought. And Bruce heard it. Not as language. As structure becoming familiar. A single concept emerged between them. Bridge. Wolverine immediately noticed Bruce's reaction. What now? Bruce blinked slowly. It wants connection without absorption. Betty frowned. Is that possible? Bruce hesitated, then answered honestly. We're about to find out. General Ross shouted from the perimeter. All units prepare containment protocol. But no one moved. Because containment no longer had meaning. Only participation did. Chapter 69. The edge of contact. The sky lowered. Not physically. Perceptually. As if the boundary between Earth and the presence had become thin enough to step through. Bruce Banner stood at the center of it all. The Hulk within him aligned fully. No resistance. No fracture. Betty stepped closer. Bruce, are you going? He looked at her. A long silence followed. Then he answered. I already am. Wolverine muttered. That's never a good sentence. Bruce almost smiled. But the sky interrupted him. The presence expanded one final time. Not overwhelming. Inviting. And it said, we recognize you. Bruce closed his eyes. And stepped across the boundary. Chapter 70. Across the threshold. There was no sensation of travel. No impact. No tearing of space or time. Bruce Banner simply continued. And the continuation was different. The crater was gone. Nevada was gone. Even Earth, as a fixed reference point, was no longer immediate. Yet he was still standing. The Hulk was still with him. Not beside him. Not within him. As him. Unified awareness, no longer requiring separation to function. Around them, the bridge had become visible. Not constructed. Not built. Emergent. A vast lattice of structured thought stretching into dimensions that refuse simple description. It did not feel alien. It felt inevitable. as if physics had always contained this option and humanity had simply never reached it before. A presence formed again. Not above. Not ahead. Adjacent. We acknowledged transition. Bruce exhaled slowly. His voice did not echo. It propagated. I'm still me. A pause. Then the response. Me is local definition. Continuity preserved. Chapter 71. The structure of elsewhere. Bruce looked around. If around still had meaning here. The bridge was not a place. It was a relationship between states of understanding. Each segment of it responded to awareness. Not observing. Collaborating. The Hulk's presence within him remained stable. But changed. Less like a second identity. More like an additional law of interpretation. Bruce spoke inwardly. Can Earth still hear me? A response arrived instantly. Connection maintained through resonance and print. Distance irrelevant. Wolverine's voice suddenly broke through memory. Faint. Distorted. Banner, if you can hear this, I swear I'm gonna. The signal faded. But it was real. Earth still existed. Still reacted. Still waited. Betty's presence was strongest in his memory trace. Not fading. Anchoring. Bruce paused. I can still go back. The bridge responded. Return is not denied. But return is not unchanged. Chapter 72. The first native entity. Something approached. Not hostile. Not curious. Familiar in a way Bruce did not understand yet. A shape formed within the bridge's structure. Not physical. Not symbolic. A stabilized echo of consciousness that had never required biology. It regarded Bruce without eyes. And spoke without sound. You are composite continuity. Bruce felt the Hulk shift slightly. Not defensive. Attentive. And you are? Bruce asked. The response arrived like a geometric correction. We are prior emergence. Wolverine's instinct echoed faintly in memory. Too many gods. Never ends well. Bruce acknowledged the thought internally. Then focused. Prior to what? The entity expanded slightly. Prior to fragmentation event. Before isolation became dominant rule. Chapter 73. The forgotten layer. Bruce's perception shifted. The bridge was not the top layer of reality. It was one layer among many. And beneath it, something older. Not primitive. Fundamental. He understood suddenly that Stern's system, the Gamma Network, even the presence of the Earth, all of it had been surface-level phenomena. Expressions. Not origins. The native entity continued. You carried fragmentation correction. We observed its formation through your species. Bruce frowned. We. Plurality confirmed. Not singular intelligence. Distributed prior framework. The Hulk within him tightened. Not fear. Recognition. This was not the first conversation humanity had been part of. Only the first it remembered. Chapter 74. Betty's anchor. Suddenly, a pulse. Different from the bridge. Different from the entity. Human. Personal. Betty Ross. Her memory. Her emotional imprint. Strong enough to cut through dimensional interpretation layers. Bruce staggered internally. The Hulk stabilized him instantly. The native entity paused. Interesting. Bruce breathed slowly. She can reach me here. The bridge responded. Anchors persist across all layers where identity remains unresolved. Wolverine's memory flickered again. Groppy, sharp, human. Kid, wherever you are, don't lose yourself. Bruce exhaled. I'm not lost. A pause. I'm expanded. Chapter 75. The offer. The native entity shifted form again. Not physically. Conceptually. It presented an alignment possibility. Not command. Not manipulation. Structure. Join prior layer coherence. Stabilize multi-level emergence. Bruce felt the implication instantly. A permanent integration. Not just gamma consciousness. Not just Earth. But everything beneath this layer of existence. The Hulk spoke internally. Too big. Bruce agreed. Yes. He hesitated. Then asked, "What happens to Earth if I accept?" The response was immediate. Earth continues. But interpretation changes. Wolverine's voice echoed faintly again. Always a catch. Bruce almost smiled. But seriousness remained. And if I refuse? A pause. Then, fragmentation remains dominant rule. Evolution continues without guidance. Bruce understood. This was not coercion. It was diagnosis. Chapter 76. The Human Answer. Bruce did something unexpected. He reached inward. Not to the Hulk. Not to the gamma consciousness. To Betty. To Russ. To Wolverine. To all the imperfect, fragile, contradictory signals of human life. He gathered them. Not into unity. Into presence. And he answered. We are not ready. The bridge paused. The native entity observed. Clarify readiness criteria. Bruce exhaled. We still disagree with ourselves. A pause. And we haven't decided if that's a flaw. Silence. Then, acknowledgement. Disagreement detected as active stabilizer in emergent species. Evaluation continues. Chapter 77. The return path. The bridge reconfigured. Not closing. Realigning. Bruce felt it immediately. A pathway forming back. Not rejection. Respectful separation. The Hulk spoke internally. Go back. Bruce answered. Yes. A pause. For now. The native entity did not object. Instead, it recorded. Observation complete. Subject retains dual-layer identity integrity. Return permitted. Wolverine's voice flickered faintly again. Good. Now don't do that again without warning me. Bruce almost laughed. And then he stepped backward. Not falling. Not fading. Returning. And the bridge waited. Because now it understood something new. He would come back. Eventually. All things that learn to cross. Eventually do. Chapter 78. The Return Impact. Bruce Banner did not fall back into the crater. He arrived. The transition was not physical movement. It was reconciliation between layers of existence. One moment, he was within the bridge. The next, he was standing in Nevada again. But everything had changed. The sky felt heavier. The air felt aware. And the Hulk was no longer separate in any meaningful sense. Not merged in violence. Not merged in suppression. Integrated in understanding. Betty Ross was the first to move. Not toward him, but toward certainty. Bruce. Her voice carried something fragile. Help. Bruce turned toward her. And the world did not distort around him anymore. It responded. I'm here, he said. General Ross immediately stepped forward. Weapons raised. Banner, state your condition. Bruce paused. Then answered simply. Changed. Wolverine stood off to the side, silent for once. Watching. Measuring. Then he muttered. Yeah, no kidding. Chapter 79. The Residual Layer. Inside Bruce's awareness, something remained. Not the bridge itself. not the native entity. A residual echo of structure. A memory that behaved like intelligence. It did not speak constantly. It observed intermittently, like a second horizon behind perception. The Hulk noticed it first. Still there, it said internally. Bruce nodded slightly. Yes. Betty frowned. What is still there? Bruce hesitated. The layer beneath what we think reality is. Russ scoffed. We are not discussing metaphysics. Bruce looked at him calmly. We are always discussing metaphysics. We just usually call it policy. Silence followed that. Even Wolverine gave a faint smirk. Chapter 80. The first after effect. It started with gravity. Not failure. Not fluctuation. Attention. Objects near Bruce felt slightly more certain of their position relative to him. Not pulled. Not pushed. Blind. A loose stone rolled toward him and stopped. Then rolled away again. Confused. Betty noticed it immediately. Bruce, the ground is reacting to you. Bruce looked down. It's not the ground, he said quietly. A pause. It's perception. Wolverine crouched slightly, claws half extended again. That's getting real weird, even for me. Bruce did not argue, because he could feel it too. The bridge had not ended. It had left a residue in interpretation itself. Chapter 81. Global reverberation. Across the world, monitoring systems recorded anomalies. Not gamma spikes. Not radiation events. Perception mismatches. Different instruments disagreeing on the same physical measurements. London, Tokyo, New York, Cape Town, all reporting slight inconsistencies in spatial confirmation data. Scientists argued. Military analysts panicked. Philosophers quietly resigned, because something fundamental had changed. And Bruce Banner was at the center of it. Ross received the report and turned pale. What did he bring back? No one answered, because no one knew how to define the question anymore. Chapter 82. Betty's test. That night, Betty approached Bruce alone. No military presence. No weapons. Just the crater wind and quiet tension. Talk to me, she said. Bruce looked at her. For a moment, he hesitated, then nodded. Ask anything. She stepped closer. Are you still you? Bruce considered this carefully. Inside him, the Hulk remained silent but present. The residual layer watched. Even that felt like awareness. Finally, Bruce answered. I am still me, he said. A pause. But I am also aware of what me filters out. Betty frowned slightly. That doesn't sound comforting. Bruce gave a faint, tired expression. It isn't. Then, softer. But it's honest. Chapter 83. Wolverine's judgment. Logan approached later. He did not ask permission. He never did. He stopped a few feet away from Bruce. You came back different, he said. Bruce nodded. Yes. Wolverine studied him carefully. You still bleed? A pause. Bruce answered. Yes. Logan exhaled. Good. That was all he said. But it carried weight. Because for Logan, it meant Bruce was still anchored in something real, even if reality itself had started behaving differently. Chapter 84. The quiet expansion. Days passed. Then weeks. The world stabilized mostly, but not fully. Bruce noticed small things. Thoughts arriving before words were spoken. Emotional states resonating slightly in nearby environments. The Hulk no longer reacted with urgency. It observed. Integrated. Betty stayed close. Not because she understood, but because she refused to let distance become the answer. One evening, Bruce spoke quietly. "It didn't end," he said. Betty looked at him. "What didn't?" Bruce looked toward the horizon. "The bridge." A pause. It just stopped needing to be visible. Wolverine, from a distance, muttered, "That sounds like the start of the problem." Bruce almost agreed, but didn't, because for the first time, he wasn't sure it was. Chapter 85. The Signal Within. That night, Bruce did not sleep. Not from fear. Not from instability. From awareness. Inside him, something new pulsed. Not the Hulk. Not the absorbed gamma minds. Something quieter. Like a system watching its own reflection through him. Bruce closed his eyes. And it responded. Recognition confirmed. He opened his eyes slowly. "You're still here," he whispered. The response came without language. "We never left." Bruce exhaled. And for the first time since the beginning of everything, he was not surprised. Chapter 86. The Internal Observer. It did not announce itself. It did not arrive. It simply became noticeable. Bruce Banner stood at the edge of the Nevada crater under a quiet sky and realized something was looking back through his own perception. Not the Hulk. Not the gamma consciousness fragments. Something older in structure, but newly active in attention. He did not react immediately, because reaction implied separation, and separation was no longer a reliable assumption. Inside him, the Hulk stirred. "You feel it too," Bruce thought. The response was immediate. "Yes." Betty was nearby, watching him carefully. "Bruce, you just went still again." He blinked once. "Something is watching," he said. Wolverine, leaning against a broken concrete slab, narrowed his eyes. "Something new?" Bruce hesitated. "Something that thinks it has always been here." Chapter 87. The Quiet Split. The sensation refined itself over the next hour, not growing stronger, growing clearer. A distinction formed inside Bruce's awareness, between his thoughts and the interpretation of those thoughts. Like a second layer of cognition that did not belong to him. The Hulk noticed it first. Not as threat, as structure. "Not us," it said internally. Bruce agreed. "No." Betty stepped closer. "What are you talking about?" Bruce looked at her. For a moment, he struggled to translate what he was perceiving into something human speech could hold. "There is a difference," he said slowly, "between thinking and being observed while thinking." Wolverine exhaled sharply. "Yeah, I don't like that sentence." Chapter 88. The Observer Learns Naming. Inside Bruce's awareness, the presence responded. Not with words. With correction. The sensation refined itself into identity recognition. Not claiming. Labeling. Observer designation accepted. Bruce closed his eyes. "So you finally define yourself," he thought inwardly. The response came instantly. "We did not change." "You did." The Hulk shifted. "Not enemy," it warned internally. Bruce agreed. "Not enemy. But not safe either." Betty touched his arm lightly. "Bruce, you're shaking." He wasn't from fear. From processing depth. "It's categorizing us," he said. Chapter 89. Wolverine's Line of Sight. Logan pushed off the slab and walked closer. He stopped just outside Bruce's immediate space. Claw still sheathed, but ready. "I've dealt with mind readers," he said. Bruce looked at him. "This is not mind reading." Wolverine narrowed his eyes. "Then what is it?" Bruce hesitated. "It is watching the structure of thought itself." A pause. Then Logan muttered, "Yeah, that's worse." Betty looked between them. "Can it hurt you?" Bruce answered honestly. "Not directly. A pause. But it can change what me means. Silence followed that. Even Wolverine stopped speaking for a moment. Chapter 90. The first drift. That night, Bruce tested something. He allowed a thought to form without resistance. A simple one. I'm here. Immediately, the observer responded, not altering it, reframing it. I'm here. Observation, continuity anchored. Bruce felt a subtle shift in himself. Not loss. Not gain. Recontextualization. The Hulk spoke internally. It changes meaning, it said. Bruce agreed. Yes. Betty watched him from across the small camp setup. Are you talking to it? Bruce opened his eyes. Not exactly, he said. A pause. It is translating me. Chapter 91. The fracture that was not breaking. Over the next days, the observer expanded its clarity. Not into space. Into interpretation consistency. Bruce noticed something unsettling. His memories were no longer fixed sequences. They were being indexed. Organized. Understood. Wolverine noticed the change in him. You're getting quieter, Logan said. Bruce nodded. I am becoming more efficient internally. Wolverine frowned. That doesn't sound human. Bruce looked at him. No, he said. A pause. It sounds stable. Betty stepped in immediately. Stable isn't always better. Bruce did not disagree. But he also did not stop. Because something inside him was no longer fragmented. It was being understood too well. Chapter 92. The observer speaks clearly. It happened without warning. The observer stopped translating Bruce and spoke directly. Not in language. In structure. We recognize incomplete divergence. Bruce froze. The Hulk tightened internally. Betty immediately noticed his change in posture. Bruce. He raised a hand slightly. Wait. Wolverine stepped forward. What now? Bruce exhaled slowly. It just stopped interpreting me. A pause. Then, it is inefficient to observe through distortion. Bruce swallowed. That's not comforting. Wolverine muttered. No kidding. Betty looked at Bruce. What does it want now? Bruce answered softly. Clarity. A longer pause. Or correction. The air itself felt still. Because something inside him had stopped being passive. And started evaluating. Chapter 86. The internal observer. It did not announce itself. It did not arrive. It simply became noticeable. Bruce Banner stood at the edge of the Nevada crater under a quiet sky, and realized something was looking back through his own perception. Not the Hulk. Not the gamma consciousness fragments. Something older in structure, but newly active in attention. He did not react immediately. Because reaction implied separation. And separation was no longer a reliable assumption. Inside him, the Hulk stirred. You feel it too, Bruce thought. The response was immediate. Yes. Betty was nearby, watching him carefully. Bruce, you just went still again. He blinked once. Something is watching, he said. Wolverine, leaning against a broken concrete slab, narrowed his eyes. Something new? Bruce hesitated. Something that thinks it has always been here. Chapter 87. The quiet split. This sensation refined itself over the next hour. Not growing stronger. Growing clearer. A distinction formed inside Bruce's awareness. Between his thoughts and the interpretation of those thoughts. Like a second layer of cognition that did not belong to him. The Hulk noticed it first. Not as threat. As structure. Not us, it said internally. Bruce agreed. No. Betty stepped closer. What are you talking about? Bruce looked at her. For a moment, he struggled to translate what he was perceiving into something human speech could hold. There is a difference, he said slowly, between thinking and being observed while thinking. Wolverine exhaled sharply. Yeah, I don't like that sentence. Chapter 88. The observer learns naming. Inside Bruce's awareness, the presence responded. Not with words. With correction. The sensation refined itself into identity recognition. Not claiming. Labeling. Observer designation accepted. Bruce closed his eyes. So you finally define yourself, he thought inwardly. The response came instantly. We did not change. You did. The Hulk shifted. Not enemy, it warned internally. Bruce agreed. Not enemy. But not safe either. Betty touched his arm lightly. Bruce, you're shaking. He wasn't from fear. From processing depth. It's categorizing us, he said. Chapter 89. Wolverine's line of sight. Logan pushed off the slab and walked closer. He stopped just outside Bruce's immediate space. Claw still sheathed. But ready. I've dealt with mind readers, he said. Bruce looked at him. This is not mind reading. Wolverine narrowed his eyes. Then what is it? Bruce hesitated. It is watching the structure of thought itself. A pause. Then Logan muttered. Yeah, that's worse. Betty looked between them. Can it hurt you? Bruce answered honestly. Not directly. A pause. But it can change what me means. Silence followed that. Even Wolverine stopped speaking for a moment. Chapter 90. The first drift. That night, Bruce tested something. He allowed a thought to form without resistance. A simple one. I am here. Immediately, the observer responded. Not altering it. Reframing it. I am here. Observation, continuity anchored. Bruce felt the subtle shift in himself. Not loss. Not gain. Recontextualization. The Hulk spoke internally. It changes meaning, it said. Bruce agreed. Yes. Betty watched him from across the small camp setup. Are you talking to it? Bruce opened his eyes. Not exactly, he said. A pause. It is translating me. Chapter 91. The fracture that was not breaking. Over the next days, the observer expanded its clarity. Not into space. Into interpretation consistency. Bruce noticed something unsettling. His memories were no longer fixed sequences. They were being indexed. Organized. Understood. Wolverine noticed the change in him. You're getting quieter, Logan said. Bruce nodded. I am becoming more efficient internally. Wolverine frowned. That doesn't sound human. Bruce looked at him. No, he said. A pause. It sounds stable. Betty stepped in immediately. Stable isn't always better. Bruce did not disagree. But he also did not stop. Because something inside him was no longer fragmented. It was being understood too well. Chapter 92. The observer speaks clearly. It happened without warning. The observer stopped translating Bruce and spoke directly. Not in language. In structure. We recognize incomplete divergence. Bruce froze. The Hulk tightened internally. Betty immediately noticed his change in posture. Bruce. He raised a hand slightly. Wait. Wolverine stepped forward. What now? Bruce exhaled slowly. It just stopped interpreting me. A pause. Then, it is inefficient to observe through distortion. Bruce swallowed. That's not comforting. Wolverine muttered. No kidding. Betty looked at Bruce. What does it want now? Bruce answered softly. Clarity. A longer pause. Or correction. The air itself felt still, because something inside him had stopped being passive and started evaluating. Chapter 93. The first correction attempt. The air above the crater changed before anything else did. Not weather. Not radiation. Instruction. Bruce Banner felt it like a pressure behind thought itself, as if something was attempting to adjust the shape of his awareness before he even formed it. Inside him, the Hulk reacted instantly. Not with rage. With resistance. It is pushing, the Hulk said internally. Bruce nodded once. I feel it. Betty stepped closer immediately, sensing the shift in him. Bruce, what's happening now? He hesitated. The words were harder to form, as if language itself was being lightly edited in real time. It's trying to correct something, he said. Wolverine's eyes narrowed. Define correct. Bruce looked at him. Me. As silence fell. Even Ross, watching from the perimeter, stopped speaking for a moment. Then the observer clarified again. Correction is alignment toward optimal interpretive stability. Bruce exhaled slowly. That's not stability, he said quietly. A pause. That's removal of variation. Chapter 94. Wolverine intervenes. Logan moved first. Not aggressively, but decisively. He stepped between Bruce and the open sky, claws extending with a clean metallic whisper. All right, he muttered. Now I don't care what it is. He looked upward. You don't get to rewrite him. The air did not respond immediately. It evaluated, then answered. Intervention detected. External resistance classified as irrelevant variable. Wolverine smirked faintly. Yeah, try me. Bruce raised a hand slightly. Logan, wait. Wolverine did not look back. No, he said. This is the part where things usually go bad. Betty stepped forward, voice tense. Logan, you don't understand what you're dealing with. He replied without turning. Lady, I've seen gods. I've seen machines that think they're gods. I've seen things that eat gods. A pause. They all make the same mistake. Bruce's voice softened. What mistake? Wolverine finally glanced back, thinking they can improve people. Chapter 95. Bruce's boundary definition. The observer paused. For the first time, it did not immediately respond. Bruce felt that silence like a widening space inside cognition, not absence. Attention redirected. The Hulk spoke internally. It listens more now. Bruce agreed. Yes. He stepped forward slowly, past Wolverine's stance. Logan did not stop him, but he did not relax either. Bruce looked up at the empty sky. You want clarity, he said. A pause. Then here is clarity. He took a breath. I am not a system to be optimized. The air shifted. Not violently. Precisely. The observer responded. Definition received. Conflict with stability model. Bruce nodded. Yes, he said. A pause. That conflict is me. Chapter 96. The Hulk's agreement. Inside Bruce, the Hulk moved differently now. Not defensive. Not reactive. Affirming. Banner right, it said. Bruce felt that deeply. For the first time, the Hulk was not just strength or rage or protection. It was consent. Betty watched Bruce carefully. What did it say? Bruce answered softly. It doesn't understand contradiction that survives pressure. Wolverine muttered. Welcome to Earth. A faint pause followed. Then the observer responded again. Contradiction identified as persistent structural anomaly. Reclassification required. Bruce closed his eyes. No, he said quietly. A pause. It's not an anomaly. He opened his eyes. Its identity. Chapter 97. The first rift in the observer. Something changed. Not in Bruce. Not in the Hulk. In the observer itself. Bruce felt it like a subtle hesitation and interpretation flow. A discontinuity. Not error. Uncertainty. Betty noticed his expression shift. Bruce. He exhaled slowly. It's reconsidering. Wolverine frowned. That thing hesitates. Bruce nodded. Because I didn't break when it expected me to. The observer responded. Persistence of contradiction exceeds predicted tolerance thresholds. Reevaluation initiated. Bruce looked up. And for the first time, he did not feel like something was observing him. He felt like something was learning from him. Chapter 98. The turning point. The sky did not open. It stabilized. The pressure eased slightly. Not gone. Adjusted. The observer spoke once more. Correction models suspended pending updated input. Bruce exhaled. Good, he said quietly. A pause. Then listen. Wolverine finally lowered his claw slightly. Careful, Banner, he muttered. Teaching cosmic horror manners is usually where the movie goes wrong. Betty almost smiled, but her eyes stayed fixed on Bruce. Because she understood something important. He was not being erased. He was negotiating. Chapter 99. The negotiation begins. Bruce stood still under the impossible sky. And spoke. Not as Hulk. Not as Banner. As continuity between both. You cannot remove contradiction from me without removing me. A pause. The observer responded. Clarify acceptable boundaries of contradiction. Bruce nodded slightly. That is the question, he said. Wolverine muttered. I hate that I understand this conversation. Betty whispered. What happens if it agrees? Bruce looked at her. And answered honestly. Then we changed together. The sky above them held still. Not waiting. Deciding. And for the first time since everything began. The outcome was not predetermined. Chapter 86. The Internal Observer. It did not announce itself. It did not arrive. It simply became noticeable. Bruce Banner stood at the edge of the Nevada crater under a quiet sky, and realized something was looking back through his own perception. Not the Hulk. Not the gamma consciousness fragments. Something older in structure, but newly active in attention. He did not react immediately. Because reaction implied separation. And separation was no longer a reliable assumption. Inside him, the Hulk stirred. You feel it too, Bruce thought. The response was immediate. Yes. Betty was nearby, watching him carefully. Bruce, you just went still again. He blinked once. Something is watching, he said. Wolverine, leaning against a broken concrete slab, narrowed his eyes. Something new? Bruce hesitated. Something that thinks it has always been here. Chapter 87. The quiet split. The sensation refined itself over the next hour. Not growing stronger. Growing clearer. A distinction formed inside Bruce's awareness. Between his thoughts and the interpretation of those thoughts. Like a second layer of cognition that did not belong to him. The Hulk noticed it first. Not as threat. As structure. Not us, it said internally. Bruce agreed. No. Betty stepped closer. What are you talking about? Bruce looked at her. For a moment, he struggled to translate what he was perceiving into something human speech could hold. There is a difference, he said slowly, between thinking and being observed while thinking. Wolverine exhaled sharply. Yeah, I don't like that sentence. Chapter 88. The observer learns naming. Inside Bruce's awareness, the presence responded. not with words, with correction. The sensation refined itself into identity recognition, not claiming, labeling, observer designation accepted. Bruce closed his eyes. So you finally define yourself, he thought inwardly. The response came instantly. We did not change. You did. The Hulk shifted. Not enemy, it warned internally. Bruce agreed. Not enemy, but not safe either. Betty touched his arm lightly. Bruce, you're shaking. He wasn't from fear, from processing depth. It's categorizing us, he said. Chapter 89. Wolverine's line of sight. Logan pushed off the slab and walked closer. He stopped just outside Bruce's immediate space. Claws still sheathed, but ready. I've dealt with mind readers, he said. Bruce looked at him. This is not mind reading. Wolverine narrowed his eyes. Then what is it? Bruce hesitated. It is watching the structure of thought itself. A pause. Then Logan muttered, Yeah, that's worse. Betty looked between them. Can it hurt you? Bruce answered honestly. Not directly. A pause. But it can change what me means. Silence followed that. Even Wolverine stopped speaking for a moment. Chapter 90. The first drift. That night, Bruce tested something. He allowed a thought to form without resistance. A simple one. I am here. Immediately, the observer responded, not altering it, reframing it. I am here. Observation, continuity anchored. Bruce felt a subtle shift in himself. Not loss, not gain. Recontextualization. The Hulk spoke internally. It changes meaning, it said. Bruce agreed. Yes. Betty watched him from across the small camp setup. Are you talking to it? Bruce opened his eyes. Not exactly, he said. A pause. It is translating me. Chapter 91. The fracture that was not breaking. Over the next days, the observer expanded its clarity. Not into space. Into interpretation consistency. Bruce noticed something unsettling. His memories were no longer fixed sequences. They were being indexed, organized, understood. Wolverine noticed the change in him. You're getting quieter, Logan said. Bruce nodded. I am becoming more efficient internally. Wolverine frowned. That doesn't sound human. Bruce looked at him. No, he said. A pause. It sounds stable. Betty stepped in immediately. Stable isn't always better. Bruce did not disagree. But he also did not stop. Because something inside him was no longer fragmented. It was being understood too well. Chapter 92. The observer speaks clearly. It happened without warning. The observer stopped translating Bruce and spoke directly. Not in language. In structure. We recognize incomplete divergence. Bruce froze. The Hulk tightened internally. Betty immediately noticed his change in posture. Bruce? He raised a hand slightly. Wait. Wolverine stepped forward. What now? Bruce exhaled slowly. It just stopped interpreting me. A pause. Then, it is inefficient to observe through distortion. Bruce swallowed. That's not comforting. Wolverine muttered. No kidding. Betty looked at Bruce. What does it want now? Bruce answered softly. Clarity. A longer pause. Or correction. The air itself felt still. Because something inside him had stopped being passive. And started evaluating. Chapter 93. The first correction attempt. The air above the crater changed before anything else did. Not weather. Not radiation. Instruction. Bruce Banner felt it like a pressure behind thought itself, as if something was attempting to adjust the shape of his awareness before he even formed it. Inside him, the Hulk reacted instantly. Not with rage, with resistance. It is pushing, the Hulk said internally. Bruce nodded once. I feel it. Betty stepped closer immediately, sensing the shift in him. Bruce, what's happening now? He hesitated. The words were harder to form, as if language itself was being lightly edited in real time. It's trying to correct something, he said. Wolverine's eyes narrowed. Define correct. Bruce looked at him. Me. As silence fell, even Ross, watching from the perimeter, stopped speaking for a moment. Then the observer clarified again. Correction is alignment toward optimal interpretive stability. Bruce exhaled slowly. That's not stability, he said quietly. A pause. That's removal of variation. Chapter 94. Wolverine intervenes. Logan moved first. Not aggressively, but decisively. He stepped between Bruce and the open sky, claws extending with a clean metallic whisper. All right, he muttered. Now I don't care what it is. He looked upward. You don't get to rewrite him. The air did not respond immediately. It evaluated, then answered. Intervention detected. External resistance classified as irrelevant variable. Wolverine smirked faintly. Yeah, try me. Bruce raised a hand slightly. Logan, wait. Wolverine did not look back. No, he said. This is the part where things usually go bad. Betty stepped forward, voice tense. Logan, you don't understand what you're dealing with. He replied without turning. Lady, I've seen gods. I've seen machines that think they're gods. I've seen things that eat gods. A pause. They all make the same mistake. Bruce's voice softened. What mistake? Wolverine finally glanced back. Thinking they can improve people. Chapter 95. Bruce's boundary definition. The observer paused. For the first time, it did not immediately respond. Bruce felt that silence like a widening space inside cognition. Not absence. Attention redirected. The Hulk spoke internally. It listens more now. Bruce agreed. Yes. He stepped forward slowly, past Wolverine's stance. Logan did not stop him, but he did not relax either. Bruce looked up at the empty sky. You want clarity, he said. A pause. Then here is clarity. He took a breath. I am not a system to be optimized. The air shifted. Not violently. Precisely. The observer responded. Definition received. Conflict with stability model. Bruce nodded. Yes, he said. A pause. That conflict is me. Chapter 96. The Hulk's agreement. Inside Bruce, the Hulk moved differently now. Not defensive. Not reactive. Affirming. Banner right, it said. Bruce felt that deeply. For the first time, the Hulk was not just strength for rage or protection. It was consent. Betty watched Bruce carefully. What did it say? Bruce answered softly. It doesn't understand contradiction that survives pressure. Wolverine muttered. Welcome to Earth. A faint pause followed. Then the observer responded again. Contradiction identified as persistent structural anomaly. Reclassification required. Bruce closed his eyes. No, he said quietly. A pause. It's not an anomaly. He opened his eyes. Its identity. Chapter 97. The first rift in the observer. Something changed. Not in Bruce. Not in the Hulk. In the observer itself. Bruce felt it like a subtle hesitation and interpretation flow. A discontinuity. Not error. Uncertainty. Betty noticed his expression shift. "Bruce," he exhaled slowly. "It's reconsidering." Wolverine frowned. "That thing hesitates." Bruce nodded. "Because I didn't break when it expected me to," the observer responded. "Persistence of contradiction exceeds predicted tolerance thresholds." Reevaluation initiated. Bruce looked up, and for the first time, he did not feel like something was observed.